Peace, peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Tonight, my brothers and I are going to be touching on the topic of immigration, on DACA, on Pan Africanism, and on a statement made by the NAACP. My brothers and I will be coming on in a few minutes. Hit the like button, family. Share the video. If you want to donate, you could use the super chat in YouTube. If you don't want to use the super chat, you could cash at me at Lord Abba. I'm going to bring my bros on, but I'm going to, shout out to my bros, my brother Dr. Logic. The Liberator is in the building. My brother Ali Bey, the professor, is in the building. And we're going to have a real powerful discussion tonight, family. So let's get into this thing, man, because I think that this immigration issue is one that we as a people are not aware of. We don't understand what's going on. And I think that because we don't understand as a whole group, we don't see what's being done to us as ADOS, meaning those of us who descend directly from the institution of slavery. So one of the things that I want to start with, and I want my brothers to jump in at any moment, but I want to start with this article. Let me share my screen real quick, because and I'll shout out to everybody in the chat, Catching Family, peace, Sister Cynthia McDonald, peace, Sherry Thomas, peace, brother Nick Music. What's good to the fam? All right, we're going to start with the effects of immigration on African American employment and incarceration. So let's get into this real quick, because I think that this is a real vital element to what we're trying to get across tonight. Okay. The 1980-2000 immigrant influx, therefore, generally explains about 20 to 60% of the decline in wages, 25% of the decline in employment, and about 10% of the rise in incarceration rates among blacks with a high school education or less. So, off rip, this article is quoting a quote, and they'll give the source as I read along, that links the effects of immigration, people immigrating over here, with our higher, because we already at high incarceration rates and poverty rates, and a decline in our wages. We're already working poor. Most of us, even as working poor, are already below the poverty line. So this article fleshes out how immigration, specifically on top of all of the other things that, as we say, accrued disadvantages that we have to deal with, right? Okay, so it goes, almost everybody knows that in the past 40 years, the real wages and job prospects for low-skilled men, especially low-skilled minority workers, have fallen. And there is evidence, although no consensus, that a rising tide of immigration is partly to blame. Now, a new NBER study suggests that immigration has more far-reaching consequences than merely depressing wages and lowering employment rates of low-skilled African males. Its effects also appear to push some would-be workers into crime and later into prison. So right off the rip, this article becomes interesting. And we're going to weave all of this in. So we're using this to set up the overall discussion based on our title tonight. So bear with us as we put this thing together. It reads, remarkably, as far as we know, no study has examined if there is a link between the resurgence of large-scale immigration and the employment of incarceration trends in the Black population. Co-authors George Borjas, Jeffrey Groger, and Gordon Hanson write in Immigration and African American Employment Opportunities, the Response of Wages, Employment, and Incarceration to Labor Supply. So that's a long name. The authors are careful to point out that even without increased immigration, most of the fall in unemployment and increased in jail Black men would have happened anyway. Nevertheless, the racially disproportionate effects of immigration on employment are striking. So you have people that are saying that regardless, because we're the bottom caste of America, because we are America's dumping ground, because all politicians gear their political lives and platform on being war on drug presidents or law enforcement presidents, which is code for lock up Negroes, right? Then of course we're going to always be the targets of such disadvantage, because that's exactly what it is. It limits our advantage in this American life to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, I want to get into some of these stats. Changing technology, government programs, and a stagnant real minimum wage have all been blamed for the poor labor market performance of low-skilled and minority workers. Another key reason the authors show is immigration. Using census data from 1960 to 2000, the authors trace the evolution of wages, employment, and incarceration rates for particular skill groups in the Black and white populations. They then relate the trends observed in these variables to the increases in immigration experienced by each skill group. The observed correlation suggests that immigration is an important underlying factor influencing the observed trends. In particular, their analysis finds that a 10% rise in immigrants in a particular skill group significantly trimmed the wages of Black and white men alike. For African Americans, the decline was 3.6%. For whites, it was slightly higher at 3.8%. But beyond that, however, the Black-white experience differed markedly, especially for low-skilled workers. Take employment rates. From 1960 to 2000, Black high school dropouts saw their employment rates drop 33 percentage points, from 88% to 55%. I mean, that part is not really relevant to what we're getting at. I want to scroll down real quick, and I want to read this section and then bring on my brothers to comment on what I just read. It says, why would a boost in immigration effectively put more men, especially Black men, behind bars? The authors put forward a straightforward theory. Immigration causes wages and employment to fall for Black workers. When this happens, some of those workers, especially those with the lowest skills, turn to crime to increase their income. Certainly, the census data reveal a statistical link. As immigration began to increase, beginning in the 1980s, so did the institutionalization of low-skilled Black men. While the Census Bureau defined institutions to include mental hospitals, the 1980 Census and Justice Department data suggests that the majority of young men who were institutionalized were in fact in prison or in jail. The rise in incarceration is most dramatic for the lowest skilled Black men. In 1980, it was just 1.3%. By 2000, it had skyrocketed to 25.1%. Even Blacks with a high school diploma saw incarceration rates increase from 0.5% to 9.8% in the same period. Why the increase? One reason the author suggests is crack cocaine, cheap to produce. At first, well, basically, I'm not going to read that, but basically, if you're not receiving the proper wages, you have, due to systemic racism that's baked into this society already, you couple that with the fact that you have immigrants coming in taking low wage jobs, you got to feed your family. So you got to pay the rent, you got to pay the bills, you got to do all these things. So a lot of our people in these neighborhoods resorted to selling crack cocaine. The article shows why it was easy to produce. I know. I come from that. I was a hustler out there, so I know exactly what the article is getting at. But putting it in that context elucidates the reasons why we basically are forced to go that route, which then leads to naturally being incarcerated because what we're doing is committing crimes in the first place. Any of my bros want to speak to that?
Oh yeah, you said a whole lot there, and it's some really good information in that data. When particularly speaking about the grand scheme of things, when you talk about the influx of illegal immigrants and how they have, made a specifically right in like from the 90s, but like from 2000 to 2007, we saw this huge spike in what they call undocumented workers, right? Because there was a political shift, right? There's a political shift. So in the immigration posture and procedure and policy. And then that even was exacerbated when Obama took office in 2008. And so the immigration population has been growing widely because there's profit in it. It's become profitable to hire the what they call low skill workers. And these low skilled workers take jobs like labor, they take food and service, leisure, hospitality, things like that, right? So the people that you see working in your hotels, doing the laundry, if you notice, if any of y'all are old enough to notice, you can kind of visualize this change that you used to see Americans in the
Yep.
hotels and all of that. And then all of a sudden now every hotel you go to is Hispanics everywhere. Most of them
That's
can't
right.
speak English. Most of them are undocumented. And I've done my own kind of research with my family members work in that industry in different areas too, and they'll tell you they can. And companies like the Hilton and their different franchises, you go into the basement of these places, they got them by the hundreds in the basement, just undocumented out of this world, working all through the places. So what they're doing is causing a lot of different effects. I'm gonna read a study later on in the show, but what I'm gonna tell you now is that when you the hiring of undocumented immigrants eats away at the Social Security program because they don't pay into that program. They eat away at the state pension program because they don't pay into the pension programs. So that eats away at the wealth. One of the most considerable parts, if you look at the new study, almost all Black folks' wealth is tied into their homes and into like boomer pensions, right? So, and they're eating away at the pension program. So the future pensions are being eroded and evaporated by not having enough people pay into them. So when you see that's illegal immigration attacking the low skill workers from labor, you see the labor everywhere from landscaping to construction. You see it looks different. The tone is different. The flavor is different. And that has a major impact on being able to create families with livable and sustainable wages so that you can be the man of your household. These type of effects. So then what are you left with? Unemployment, right? That's on the low wage side, right? The low skill side. Then we're getting attacked from the legal immigration. So immigration for Americans is no good. I don't care if it's legal or illegal. It's time to put a salary cap on the immigration because too much of anything is bad, right? So you have the H-1B1 visas, right? The high skilled workers coming in and eating up the federal money and the federal aid and assistance that could be going to ADOS. And now you're seeing all the high skill all the high skill government grants and all the different programs going to Indians, Africans, Europeans, Caribbeans, so on and so forth. So now you're seeing less and less Black doctors, Black engineers, Black scientists, Black architects. All of the high skills is going to the HB1 visas because there's a different type of exchange going on there. And I'm going to speak to that later on in the show. But we want to understand, we have to start looking through the economic lens to understand what their politics should be. That's what everyone else uses to guide their politics. They understand who their specific group is, and then they navigate and they make decisions about how that's going to affect them economically. Because economic is the basis of all your security in this country. If you don't have economic security, you don't have security in anything else. So that's what your politics needs to be rooted in.
Yeah, Brother Ali.
Yeah, and another one of the areas where they take a lot of the jobs is in landscaping. You know, one of the things that I noticed just in the areas out in Jersey where my mom live and stuff like that is a lot of those jobs, they're owned oftentimes by Italian people, but all of the workers will be like Mexicans or some kind of South American or whatever the case is. So you see them a lot in in lawn care and everything else like that, roofing. You'll see them working on people's roofs. Again, the companies are American owned, but all of the workers are, of immigrant background. And same thing with like, sidewalks and different things like that in front of your house and working on your steps and things of that nature. So I think what they do is they provide a certain level of slave labor for a lot of the Europeans who own those particular companies. And I would just say this too, in terms of them and paying taxes, because I know that's one of Joe Biden's points in terms of representing for undocumented immigrants or illegal aliens, is that they pay billions of dollars into the system. And they, according to them, they deserve to be here because they're paying all of this money into federal and state taxes and so forth. You know what I mean? So that's one of Joe Biden's points. But my problem is this: even though they're doing that, they may be doing that. I don't know, because I don't believe that all illegal aliens are paying taxes into the system. From what I see on what I have pulled up, they're talking about between 50 and 75% of them pay federal, state, and local taxes. Nevertheless, you have, Democrats who are caping for them in terms of getting rights of citizenship, and they're using these kinds of arguments, the fact that they're taking money from these people, to kind of make the argument that they deserve the rights of citizenship because they're contributing to the economy. So I have a problem with that. The fact that if they are taking money, they're taking money from people that they know are illegal and not enforcing the laws in terms of who can be here and who should not be here. Also, they're giving them the rights of citizenship by way of giving them driver's licenses. Now, the problem with that for me is you have a lot of illegal aliens who are able to get driver's licenses, where there are a lot of brothers who are jammed up on child support and have their licenses stripped from them based on child support arrears. And we don't know if any of these illegal aliens are deadbeat fathers themselves or whatever, yet they're able to bypass that whole situation because we don't know their background in their countries of origin, whether or not they're deadbeat, how many kids they have, if they're taking care of their kids. Meanwhile, we are caught up behind a system that wants to deprive us of access to a driver's license because we don't have the money, a lot of times, don't have the money to pay for the child support arrears. And so not only are you getting your licenses stripped from you, but you wind up getting locked up. And the way they like to do us, they want to lock us up on Friday so they can keep you in there over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, man, it's just, to me, it's another way for them to use these people to skip past us, so they don't have to deal with that particular aspect of it when our people are caught up in it and can't get driver's licenses the way they need to, so they can get around and deal with employment properly.
That's right. That's just a slap in the face. Did you want me to pull up that right now?
You can pull that up. Yeah, I just wanted to show something, right? So we can start. We can see some things. We gotta start seeing these things and having these conversations in specific ways, right? And this is how we need to be doing our politics as a specific group. We can't have these emotional conversations about immigration because they want to use these emotional plays. Well, they're treating them bad and this and that. And we're gonna get to the DACA piece and how that is just not only it's unconstitutional altogether. How they're using it as an emotional play to try to weave into some civil rights type of conversation. It can't even be considered civil rights because they're not even citizens. But let's look at how this thing impacts us, though. We have to look at how things impact us, right? The impact on immigration on Black workers. This particular what I'm reading from comes from. Let me get the full title for you: The Impact of Illegal Immigration on the Wages and Employment Opportunities of Black Workers. This was a briefing before the United States Commission on Civil Rights held in Washington, D.C., right? I suggest you can look that up and look at the whole brief. It has a lot of good information, a lot of good graphs, a lot of good data, right? It says the impact of immigration on Black workers. Several studies have found that immigration has impacted the wages or employment of native-born African Americans. When they say native-born, they talk about ADOS. This includes recent studies by Borjas, Grover, and Hansen that found that immigration reduces labor force participation of the least educated Black men. Right. Research by Andrew Sum. This is what Naheem was talking about earlier. Research by Andrew Sum, Paul Harrington, and Ishwa Kitawada at Northeastern University has found that immigrants are displacing young native-born men in the labor market, and that the largest impact is on Black and Hispanics. I don't know why they mention Hispanics, because then they come back and take away from that and say that most of these illegal immigrants are in fact Hispanics themselves, right? So how could you be hurting your own self? So it doesn't make sense. They just always kind of like to throw that out there to take away from the injustice that we're facing as a specific group. They start out telling you that it's impacting native-born African Americans. Then they try to come and take away with it and throw Hispanics in there. Then it says, in my own research, I have found that Blacks are more likely to be in competition with immigrants than even whites, right? A 1995 study by Augustine Kaposowa concluded that non-whites appear to, let's go down a little further here, lose jobs to immigrants, and their earnings are depressed by immigrants. So when they're talking about the earnings being depressed, they're saying that what we could have got paid for jobs that we would have done 10 years ago, we're not getting that same amount in wages for that same job today. So when you are coming in the illegal status and you're looking to try to make your way, you will do a job that used to be considered a valuable job, or a job where you can get a honest day's pay for an honest day's work. But now you got illegal wages for illegal work, right? So it depresses the value of the real work. So it says a 1998 study of the New York area by Howell and Mueller found that a 10% point increase in the immigrant share of an occupation reduced wages of Black men about 5 percentage points. Given the large immigrant share of the occupation they studied, this implies a significant impact for on non-native Blacks, right? So on native Blacks, right? So what that's basically saying is that about 1.2 million of our brothers and sisters lost jobs and were impacted negatively in lost wages. So now a job that you could have got $17 to $25 for 10 years ago, you're taking 8 to 10 for it now. So this is what they're talking about as being the working poor now, because if you come from a country where, one, you're illegal, two, you don't pay taxes, three, you working with something like the peso, like in Cuba, you got the peso in Cuba, you got the peso in Mexico, And so you come here and you get $10. You think that your whole valuation of money is different. You're looking at that as a really good wage. So you'll take these jobs. They'll pay you these jobs where you working hard and doing all that, and you'll accept that, right? So you depress the value of that labor. We have to understand that because we built the country on labor and we lost wages and they're continuing to steal wages from us. So we have to look at that. I'm gonna go in on that some more a little later, but understand the significance of what the impact for low skilled workers are doing to devalue and depress the wages of jobs that used to be good paying jobs. So now you got to go all day and work hard and barely make ends meet. That's not how it used to be. You used to have these jobs in hospitality. You had these jobs in labor that used to be considered good jobs. You had men raising families with these jobs. You had women in hospitality contributing to their households significantly, and you were able to build what would look like something like a middle class with these jobs once upon a time. And now these jobs are becoming low wage, minimum wage type jobs, and you can't feed not even your family, that you can barely feed yourself off of.
Indeed.
Would you get?
No, go ahead, Brother Ali.
I saw the brother's comment, Carlton Cooper. He said, "Don't leave out the black immigrants." I have a point of view that I kind of wanted to touch on, and we've spoken about it a number of times over the phone and stuff. The issue of black on black crime.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that actually became a thing. The terminology is first used in 1970, which is really interesting. Think about what we're saying now when we start talking about black immigrants. 1965, what happens? You have a change in the Immigration Nationality Act that allows for an influx of black immigrants to come. 1970 arises a term called black on black crime. 5 years later. A few years after that, maybe like three years, 1973, in New York, where there's a high concentration of black immigrants, 1973 comes a law called the Rockefeller drug laws. Right behind, see, like I'm not trying to blame, right? We got to be honest about what we're looking at, right? Not trying to blame all crime on black immigrants. But what I think happens with blackness is that because they group everybody together in this thing called black, and when they put together their criminal statistics, they're not doing it based on ethnic backgrounds, they're doing it based on race. And so because African Americans are the dominant the dominant ethnic group here, and African American has become synonymous with black, everybody gets classified as black African American. And so when they put out their crime statistics, that's the way it comes up. And so black on black crime becomes this thing where all of this stuff is happening in the major cities where all of these black people are at. But what we never really got to do was break down who's committing these crimes based on ethnic backgrounds. Because before the rise of black on black crime in 1970, before the 1965 Immigration Act change, we didn't have that. So I personally think that the rise in black on black crime is an import, just like drugs are imported, just like hair is imported. I think that a certain criminal culture that's being blamed on black people, which means in essence, African Americans are going to take the hardest hit because we're the largest black group in the country. What they're doing is, what's happening is we're taking the hit for a lot of these other ethnic groups that are quote unquote black, that probably are committing a lot of the crimes that we're seeing in this country, because really that wasn't our culture. Our culture was freedom fighting.
Yes.
And so when we start talking about the, incarceration rates and the crime rates and how this stuff became an uptick with how immigration helps to bring this up, I think that a lot of that is not just African Americans, who were committing these crimes. I think the uptick in the crime rate was based on the criminal culture that came in with the people.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it just chronologically it makes sense.
Yeah. And speaking to that chronological story that you just really kind of painted a nice picture. I like the way you said that what was our culture, pre 1970, pre 1965. So even leading up to 1970, you see what we were doing. 65, 66, 67, 68 when the king get assassinated. What do we have going on here? We got the Black Panthers, we got SNCC, we got Core, we got Slick. You know what I mean? We're doing civil rights and freedom fighting all the way from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to civil rights. That was our culture, freedom fighting, like the brother said. Then all of a sudden you get these sweeping legislation to open up immigration, right? And what's happening? You can't really see what's happening, but Black folks are fighting for their freedom and fighting for equal treatment, equal pay. So now they can't get that free labor from us no more. They can't get that cheap labor from us no more. So they have to open up a pathway to get it from somebody else, right? So they open up that pathway and they open up these borders to try to replace the loss of profits that they're getting from having to pay us fair and equitable wages and things of that nature, because the fight was for fair employment, fair wages, fair housing, things like that. So that's eating into their overall bottom line. So they're bringing it in. What comes in with that? Now, what he said was very important. I don't want us to just move past that. Like, he didn't say something that was really earth shaking. Where did the crime come from? We didn't have no dope. If you go and look into all the historic dope dealers, and this might not make you feel good, but it's reality. If you look at all the historic dope dealers, none of them are rooted into America. They all come from, I don't care if we talking about white immigrants, Black immigrants, Jewish immigrants, Irish immigrants, you got nothing but crime being imported.
That's right.
The crime, the Italian crime syndicate families, you understand? Bringing in heroin, bringing in racketeering, bringing in the burlesque, not the burlesque and the brothels and the prostitution rings and all that. We wasn't doing none of that. They imported that stuff over here. Same thing when you get to the Irish and the Jewish crime lords and all kind of deviant, nefarious behavior and characters coming in from overseas. Then now all of a sudden we get blamed for everything, black on black crime. They come here and they create the whole entire empires and dynasties off crime, but and get movies made after them where they glorify them for decades and decades. And they'll say, well, look at Chicago, and now Chicago has to be the state capital of black on black crime. They use Chicago as an example to say we don't deserve nothing because we just killing ourselves. So it really don't make sense. And if you look at that, we have to understand that that's not really our culture. Let's get back to freedom fighting.
Indeed.
Yeah. I got a chart here, man, from this is from the Brennan Center dealing with the history of mass incarceration. If you look at the bottom of the chart, this again coincides with the influx of the Black immigrant population. I'm sorry, like, listen, I'm not trying to rag on our people. Those are, that's our family from the diaspora. But look at what happens. The more that they come in, look at how this thing exponentially rises. At the bottom of the years, 1964, 66, 68, 70, 74, it really starts from 72, 74, it starts to jump and it just goes up. It goes up, keeps going up. So this, like I said, this is the Brennan Center, and it says the prison system growth. And obviously, with mass incarceration, we're talking about the mass incarceration of quote unquote Black men. Problem is, they're not breaking down who these Black men are by ethnicity. They just putting them in there under Black men / African American, and all of these people are not African American. Like, if you, for instance, you take the situation with Bobby Shmurda, right? Bobby Shmurda is not ADOS, and I guarantee the majority of his crew not ADOS. Same thing with Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine is an immigrant, right? Brooklyn is a place where there's a very large immigrant population in Brooklyn. Very large from the Caribbean. That's why on Eastern Parkway every year, you see them have the Juve and the Caribbean Festival every year. And mind you, every year as they're doing this, somebody gets killed. Never fails. Every single year in Brooklyn, when they're doing their Juve, somebody gets killed, right? And so it's in Brooklyn because that's where the largest population of Black immigrants is in New York City. So at the end of the day, when Tekashi 6ix9ine, who is an immigrant, gets locked up, his whole crew gets locked up. Every single last one of those people are immigrants. So I'm just saying that we gotta, like, it would be great if there was a way that we could really get the breakdown on who's actually responsible for a large portion of the quote unquote Black crimes. I just think that our particular group has taken a lot of hits over the years from racist whites to the immigration thing. This is just another way that immigration ill affects our particular group because we're getting smashed in with a lot of stuff that doesn't rightfully belong to us.
Yeah,
definitely. I want to get to this next part, and I'm glad my brothers eloquently broke down this issue for immigration for ADOS and its negative effects on us. And the article that I read from the National Bureau of Economic something, I forgot that fast, but it also made that correlation. So I want to show people how immigration has replaced ADOS. Those of us who descend from slavery in America, those who are rooted in this American system from day one. So let me share my screen here. This is important in understanding, right? It says Trump claimed that Black Americans are hurt most by illegal immigration gets pushback. So this story is published by a brother named Eugene Scott. I don't know if he's ADOS or if he's an immigrant or not. First generation, second. I couldn't really find anything. And that's important because I know people think that we're being xenophobic, but I just watched the Twitter thread the other day where all of these people from the African continent made us seem like we were the worst people in the whole world. Some of their tweets were outrageous. They were just outrageous. It was so disrespectful. And one of the things that I've never seen was a tweet like that from our people going at a bunch of Africans. I've just never seen it. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I've never seen it. It was never brought to my attention. It was never shared when we had these debates with the people from over in continental Africa. So I'm not going to read a lot of this, but we'll get into this. It says, when President Trump made the case for his border wall Tuesday, he repeated a popular right-wing talking point. Trump said, America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Now, and it says, and those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. I think my brother Ware L touched on that point about Hispanic Americans. He was on point with that point. But nevertheless, let's scroll back up. Trump's claim that Black Americans are hurt most by illegal immigration gets pushed back. Well, who's pushing it back? Because we have this brother that's writing this story. And he's writing this story and framing it in a way that he's appearing to be neutral, but he's a part of the pushback. He's a part of the pushback. And the fact that what we just read, what my brothers just pulled up, coincides with what Trump said when he said, but all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal immigration. It strains public resources and drives down job wages. Who's pushing back on that? Who's the people that are pushing back on that? And when you get to looking at it, it's largely the Democratic Party. And this is why the Republican Party is starting to make some traction with our people who are disaffected Democrats. So I want to go to this next thing real quick because it's important. Because this gets in, it blends, it segues from immigration to the NAACP in a way that we get to expose these people that we call gatekeepers who really don't care about us or our plight. So this is from the NAACP president. It says, in the Hill interview, NAACP president puts Trump DACA actions alongside Dred Scott decision. So that off the rip had me tight. I was fuming earlier when my brother Josh put that in the inbox. Shout out to my brother Josh. He wasn't able to make it on tonight. Let's read. NAACP President Derek Johnson sees some of the Trump administration's actions on race and citizenship as reminiscent of the U.S. before the Civil War. Whoa, that is a big, big statement to be made. It says, in an interview with The Hill, Johnson likened President Trump's effort to rescind the Deferred Action for Children Arrivals, DACA, program to the Supreme Court's infamous Dred Scott decision of 1857 that ruled Black Americans were not citizens. He said, there was a decision called the Dred Scott decision, and it was in that decision where the Supreme Court held that Blacks had no rights that whites were bound to uphold, Johnson said on Wednesday. We've seen the administration's reversal of DACA in that same light. Now, I don't know if this man is ADOS. I don't know if this man is ADOS.
Probably.
I don't know, huh?
Probably not.
He's probably not, but he's definitely a gatekeeper. And we got to put this thing in perspective that those of us that were enslaved in America, our ancestors and their progeny who sit here on this panel today, we are being pushed out in every facet of American society. We are basically being replaced. Okay, I'm going to read this part. It says DACA, oftentimes people seem to think of the Latinx community, when in fact it was far more reaching than that, Johnson said. We have individuals who are members of the NAACP or among the Black communities who would also have been impacted. Those individuals are from the Caribbean nations, some from the African continent who are here. Whether you're from Jamaica or South Africa or Ghana, that's also a part of the Black community and has always been. So I'm going to stop right there.
You know, read that again.
Okay, hold on. He said, okay, whether you're from Jamaica or South Africa or Ghana, that's also a part of the Black community and has always been, he added. So, all right, wait. Let me just read this next part. Nearly 700,000 so-called dreamers, undocumented immigrants who arrived in the United States as minors are protected by DACA, which grants them deferral from deportation and a work permit. Now, this is something that was put in place by Barack Obama's administration. Obviously, it was unconstitutional because it went against the very provision of the 14th Amendment. I don't know how it didn't get struck down years ago, to be honest with you. And maybe my lack of research on any constitutional challenges to DACA bears itself in front of you right now. But that the Dreamers Act, as it's been nicknamed, is an affront to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. So when this president says, whether you're from Jamaica or South Africa or Ghana, that's also a part of the Black community and has always been, is he talking about when Justice Taney said that blacks had no rights that a white man was bound to respect because they weren't here. Right. They weren't the reason why the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which effectively overturned the ruling in Dred Scott, happened, and subsequently leading to the 14th Amendment. They weren't here then. So what is this man talking about? And it's our job to break this stuff down to y'all. Yvette Carnell did an excellent show on this last night. Was that last night or the night, or was that her show before last? I think it was last night. She was going in on some of this as well. So, and she has videos breaking this stuff down, like breaking this stuff down. So we got to be diligent in our understanding, people, that there's a plot to replace us. They want us to stay at the bottom. And I'm going to get into the reparations element of this whole aspect. But Brother Ali, what were you going to say, brother?
I was going to say that the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, has an original mission statement, right? And it says that they have pledged to promote equality of rights and eradicate caste or race prejudice among citizens of the United States, to advance the interests of colored citizens, to secure for them impartial suffrage, and to increase their opportunities for securing justice in the courts, education for their children, employment according to their ability, and complete equality before the law. That's the plight of the descendants of the freedmen and women. It's not the plight of all black people.
Exactly.
It's not the plight of all black people. But let me read this to you guys too. From Black's Law Dictionary, 2nd edition, which the second edition was published in the early 1900s, somewhere around 1920 something, right? We can look it up to get the exact year. What is colored? By common use in America, this term in such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the like, is used to designate Negroes or persons of the African race, including all persons of mixed blood descended from Negro ancestry. Now, when we're talking about Negroes and free people of color and all of that kind of stuff, we're talking about people from the time period of slavery in America. Because you remember, you have free people of color. Those are not immigrants. Those are people who were here during the time of slavery, and what is now the United States of America. So we're not talking about a bunch of immigrants. They didn't have an immigration policy when the term colored people or free people of color or whatever, when that term and that classification came about, there was no immigration policy for Africans to freely come into the United States. So we're not talking about people from the African continent or people from the Caribbean like that. We're talking about people who are in the United States, right? So obviously, you have these people in different places. But when we're talking about in the United States, we're talking about people in the United States, right? So if you have free people of color, if you have colored people in St. Lucia or Dominica, or wherever the places are, those are people who are classified as that in those places. In the United States, the NAACP is activated for the purpose of the advancement of the rights and justice for the people who are the descendants of the freedmen and women coming out of emancipation in 1865. So there's an obvious difference. And the difference obviously is because there was no immigration policy for all of those people to come here. So like it's always brought up, by ADOS that before 1965, is the way Tone likes to say, before 1965, the amount of black immigrants was to the right of the decimal point. So obviously, we're talking about people largely of slave descent in the United States. I just wanted to make that clear because I know that what they're trying to do is group everybody together based on this blackness and based on, you know, being called Negroes or colored. But that's why we have to do what we have to do in terms of making these distinctions, because everything is getting convoluted.
Yes, yes, it is. I want to say, like, I want to talk about that real quick. You know, real quick, I want to hit a few little points. First of all, the disrespect coming from the NAACP comparing DACA to the Dred Scott case. Before I go in on DACA, let me just explain the difference on why he needs to be removed for not knowing what he's talking about, or he needs to be removed for going out there and misrepresenting our movement and disrespecting our ancestors like that. For one, Dred Scott was recognized as he doesn't even know what the Dred Scott case was about. Dred Scott was already recognized as a citizen in his state, as a free black, as a free colored, like Ali was breaking down. The problem was his citizenship was not being recognized in another state, right? When we talk about deferred action for what's the DACA Act called? Deferred action for children
arrivals, I believe.
Children arrivals. So what that deferred action they talking about is getting them out of here, right? Let's wait. You don't get to get compared to Dred Scott. Not yet. I don't want to bring that. Not just yet.
All right.
Hold on, brother. Right. So the deferred action that we're talking about is the fact that they want this type of citizen sympathy and to be packaged in and just granted citizenship because they're connected to some criminal acts that their parents did. Now, my kids don't get rewarded for my criminal activity. Why are we rewarding their children with criminal activity from their parents? Exactly. They can't get around the criminality of what they done did. They knew the risk. They knew the risk. The risks were not unknown before they crossed that border because they took a risk just to get here. So then they knew that their kids could be facing deportation when they brought them over here. Now, we're not talking about anchor babies, people who came over here and got pregnant and had babies and took advantage of the 14th Amendment, which they only have because ADOS is. You only have an anchor baby opportunity because ADOS exists, right? And so, but that's not what DACA is about. DACA is not about the anchor babies. They're about the backpack babies, the babies that came over in backpacks that they had, and then they just want to raise them in America. And now these kids feel like, well, you know, we need to. I tip my hats off to them though, because they organized very well to get this thing done. And I'm gonna show you why the Democrats took that and ran with it and said, let's forget ADOS and let's roll with them. So, but we have to understand that we can't compare that to Dred Scott because Dred Scott was moving in a situation where there was no federal standard for what could be considered citizenship. It was being defined on a state level. So you had a situation where you had citizenship being recognized in one state and being denied in another state. So when the 14th Amendment was passed, what it did was uniform the definition of citizenship. It didn't create citizens. Citizens, black folks have been citizens in several different states prior to the 14th Amendment. They were being denied their citizenship in other states. But since this is a union of states, we all have to be uniform to a certain degree. So that's when the federal Constitution was amended and Congress passed this legislation so you could not be denied. Now, since that 14th Amendment was passed, now that's in the Constitution. So Dred Scott never violated no Constitution. You can't compare you calling Dred Scott a criminal. You compare DACA to the Dred Scott case. Dred Scott wasn't no criminal. He was a citizen. These people violated the Constitution, the federal Constitution, when they came over here.
That's
and they
right.
want citizenship for being party to crimes. Mm-hmm. That's just and
it's also a violation of the laws, the immigration laws that were established, which is why you get the name illegal in the first place, right? Yeah. Illegal means the opposite of legal. So yeah. There's a question in the chat. I mean, not a question. I'll just something I wanted to address real quick. See if I can find it. It was something in the chat about, there it goes. All right. Kevin Kerwin. He says, brothers, the Civil Rights Act of the 60s, which allowed our people to abandon our businesses and work for Europeans, also white flight of the 50s and the 60s aided unemployment in our community. Have any of you ever come across that information in the historical records about the Civil Rights Act?
Nah, I
Well,
don't. Go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
this is nonsense right here. This is complete nonsense, and it really is upsetting and frustrating when people try to use that language. And I don't know. Show me where somebody abandoned. Like when you choose to use the word people, allowed people to abandon their job. First and foremost, you really, I'm sorry, I'm not being disrespectful, but you don't know what you're talking about. We was already working for white folks. Nobody abandoned nothing. We was already being working in their kitchens. We was already working at their jobs. We was already sending people to space. Do you hear me? You understand what I'm saying? We was working at NASA during it before the Civil Rights Act passed. We weren't like people act like we had this black utopia business enterprise situation going on before the Civil Rights Act was passed. And then when that passed, we just ran to white folks' land and then abandoned all our businesses. That is not history. That's not how anything happened. I urge you to go talk to your elders, brother. Do you have people in the South who was experiencing that? Go talk to the oldest members of your family. That's not reality. I don't know what lectures we listen to get us to say stuff like that, but that's absolute nonsense.
Dr. Claude Anderson. A lot of that kind of sentiment comes from Claude Anderson and the rhetoric that he uses that's being spread around the internet. He says that kind of stuff a lot. But what people don't realize is that all due respect to Dr. Claude Anderson, a lot of the stuff that he has said in terms of data is off. And in terms of the historical accuracy of some of the things that he says is off too. You have to really check out what he's saying. Like I listen to the stuff that he says and I go and I check the stuff he says, and some of the stuff historically is off too, man. I ain't even gonna lie. It just is. It's just off. You know what I mean? But I respect that the man is trying to make people aware and you know, wake people up to the things that are going on. But some of that information is just outdated, and he really needs to like kind of like update that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I believe that's what needs to happen. That's just me. I know people love him, and you know he's dear to a lot of folks, and I respect that. But to be honest with you, a lot of his information is outdated.
Yes. It really is. And people really need to like talk to your family. Talk to your brothers and sisters from Alabama, from Georgia, from Mississippi. They were already working for white folks. They just was getting paid slave wages and getting unfair treatment. They would have to walk 2 miles to the colored bathroom, but be working somewhere where there was a bathroom right outside the door, but it was only white. So every time you had to go use the bathroom, you had to go walk a mile to the black part of the building or the section of work,
Right.
and go use the bathroom there. That's what we were talking about. Being treated. So it wasn't about being able to use the bathroom next to white folks and drink out of the same water fountain as white folks. It was oftentimes that water fountain had dirty water in it because the city wouldn't keep up with the same type of irrigation and maintenance, and the city water, light, and power was using racist tactics and giving us the worst of everything. It was about equality, not in being color, but equality and accessing the resources that our taxes pay for. You understand? I should be able to drink clean water too because my taxes pay for all the water in the city. You understand?
Tax.
Oh, my bad. I just wanted to show people the NAACP's donation. Shout out to my brother Josh. He couldn't make it on the show tonight, but he's still contributing, of course. Corporations, $1 million and above, AT&T and Wells Fargo, 200,000 to 999,000. Bank of America, Community for Good Government. I mean, Federal Express, Ford, Hyundai. These people don't work for us. 100,000 to 199,000. Airbnb, American Airlines, Coca-Cola, Comcast, of all people. Committee on States. I mean, Walt Disney, Walmart. Like, geez, 50,000. Black Economic Alliance, Eighth Amendment Project, CVS. All of these people are donating to the NAACP, and these people are
You're beholden to these
That's
people.
right.
When you start giving money like that, you gotta consider what it is that they're looking for out of this.
And now look at this one: $10,000 to $49,999. The Jewish Foundation, McDonald's. I'm skipping some. Miller Coors, MGM, Netflix, the New York Giants. Wow. Planned Parenthood. That's very interesting. Let me see who else is on here. Verizon, Yale. I mean, these people are getting money, and they're not advancing anything that. They're not advancing anything. Sister, shout out to my sister Cynthia. She just hit me up and said she did some sleuthing on the writer Eugene Scott. He is not ADOS. His father is from Trinidad. Also, not that it means that much, but it means something. Eugene is also LGBTQ, and his partner is not black. His partner is white, possibly Hispanic. And I think that that does mean something, because even with the push for like our rights, we're noticing, and we watch Yvette touch on this as well. We watch Tone touch on this as well. We see that the message gets usurped by other issues, right? Well, I was at the march in my city downtown, and it was Black Lives Matter. And then some woman got up there with the on the bullhorn and start saying Black trans lives and LGBT lives matter. And one of the European Americans, white dudes that was there, he was like, but we not here for that. He starts chanting Black Lives Matter. He was like, we are specifically here today for Black lives. And the whole argument broke out, and then it was about to just get chaotic. So, you know, I think that is an issue, because everybody is trying to shoehorn their way into the things that were specifically done for us as a people, while we have very limited access to those things. The NAACP, they, along with the Congressional Black Caucus, was fighting for DACA and fighting for the Dreamers. The very next day, Byron Allen was fighting Comcast, who was trying to use the courts to strip the efficacy of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. None of these people were there. I believe you got one head of maybe the Urban League, I think that put out a statement in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. Like these things are, this is crazy at the end of the day. We are being replaced. We are being replaced, and we have to fight, and everything has to center around reparations and our justice claim. And I'm going to get into some of that as well. I see my brothers have some screens pulled up.
Let me say something real quick, right? And then I got a screen. I'm going to talk to the why, right? The why, because we can't speak about how off and wrong the NAACP is and then not mention the Black Caucus too, right? The Congressional Black Caucus too, right? And then their relationship together. We have to follow the money, but understand how it was born. So the NAACP always had that potential to go left and never really be for us, for real, because it was, if you look at the very first pictures of the NAACP, you won't see no Black folks in there. It was started in New York after the 1908 riots in Springfield, Illinois. And then there was a group in New York that started the NAACP, and I believe all of them were Jewish. Almost all of them were Jewish, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a group started. So our advancement can't start by a handful of white folks. That's just not, I mean, not to take away some of the good stuff that NAACP has done throughout the years and some of the historic stuff that they've helped get done, but we have to understand that. We have to understand that we didn't create the NAACP. A lot of people see these Black presidents of the NAACP and see that, but he did not start the NAACP. The first picture of the founding members of the NAACP were a handful of white folks in somebody's apartment in New York after the race riots in Springfield, Illinois. All right. So now we have to understand, why are we being left out, forgotten, and traded for the Hispanics? You can pull the screen up now, brother. And this is why you hear the Congressional Black Caucus having this weird type of multicultural inclusion type of posture. And then from that brief that I read at the civil rights hearing, some of the witnesses that were there, they approached the Congressional Black Caucus and asked them, "Yo, what is y'all position on immigration?" They got crickets. They got silence. They got no comment. Yes, and there's videos about you can Google them, you can YouTube them, you can hear the backstory about them and how they came to the Congressional Black Caucus and was like, immigration is impacting the Black community in a very dangerous way. What are y'all going to do about it? What is y'all position about it? And they just ignored it. But this is why they're ignoring it. Look at this graph here, and it'll tell you why. So, understanding that Hispanics projected to become largest minority group in the electorate in 2020. The graph represents percentage of eligible voters by racial and ethnic group. So we have from in 2000, right? In the year 2000. So we see those considered as white, right? Out of the elected eligible voters, they got 76.4% of their people voting in 2000. By 2000, they're coming down. They're coming down, right? But look at what we have. We have the Asians still very insignificant, really, as far as being a X factor type of base for anybody. But look at the black impactful. In the year 2000, we was 11.5. You know what I mean? The Democrats, that's why they're always trying to kiss our babies and knock on our door to get that access to that 11.5. That's still a very low number. They're talking about eligible voters. We can bring this number up significantly, but this is the important part. In 2000, the Hispanics were 7.4. Now let's travel down to 2008, 2012. And then we hit a big uptick. Well, not really big, but we jumped up pretty huge and went to 12.5. And to get we came out in huge numbers, but it wasn't enough in 2016. But look at the growth of the Hispanic population from 7.4% in 2000 to 11.9 in 2016. Wow. That is huge. So they like, understand, people, when you're registering people to vote, this stuff gets added up, it gets archived, and people are looking at this and they're seeing that that it's crazy amount of growth in this sector, and they're saying, look at Black folks, they haven't moved. And this is the projection. They saying in 2020 we're still going to be 12.5. We haven't moved. We're not voting. We're not registering people to vote. And we're not going out because why? Barack Obama. So we had this big boom where we got us that percent. This was from the Obama boom, where more people voted than ever have voted before, right? And we've stayed at that number. We haven't really grown, and we're projecting to still be at that number in 2020, and they're looking to go up almost another 2%. So this is why the trade-off is happening, folks, right? Because we want to do everything else but politics. That's our problem, and if you don't have the almond toasted silver tongue telling you lies, you don't want to come out like you're supposed to. So that is what it's about. Those numbers right there, I don't know how many of you are going to understand them numbers, but they're just as damaging as the wealth data. You got to understand that. This is your political trade-off. You getting replaced politically and annihilated economically. Understand that.
That's right. That's right, Brother Ali. You have something you wanted to share?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see the article?
Yeah. Did you want me to pull it up or?
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So this is the man who we get a lot of the stuff about the Civil Rights Act and how it messed everybody up, but also he has a position about immigration. And you can see by the title, we don't have to read the whole thing because I would rather get to the video that Josh wants us to play, but just from the title alone, respected scholar explains how immigration harms Native Blacks. So This is what we can look at, right? He's a member of the Harvard Institute. I believe he's a member of the Harvard Institute. But anyway, it says here, Anderson comments, executing immigration policies without mitigating the negative impact those policies have on Black Americans is illegal and unconstitutional. The article explains that the 13th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, enacted at the end of the 1860 Civil War, mandated that Black people be treated in all manners similar to whites, and that government must use all necessary means to lift the legacies and burdens of slavery from the shoulders of Blacks. Since then, 6 succeeding generations of immigrants have been fast-tracked into full American dream membership, while Black Americans remain the nation's official underclass. The mandates of the 13th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution have been ignored, violated, and corrupted. These constitutional amendments were the collective base for the 1866 civil rights laws, designed to correct the 1857 Dred Scott decision that held a Black man had no rights a white man was bound to respect. These laws were originally intended not for all people, but to specifically correct the systemic injustice imposed upon Black people. Throughout the nation's history, there have been successive waves of immigrants that have blocked the access of Native Blacks to or pushed them off of the upward mobility ladder of success. After slavery, over 100 million European immigrants displaced Blacks in every labor and professional occupation. The article explains how displacement should not be ignored but addressed in policy reform because it continues unabated in areas such as those below in this particular piece. We don't have to go into that, but I just wanted people to see that it's not just an ADOS, as ADOS as a so-called organization, but even Dr. Claude Anderson speaks on it. And when we had the video of Amos Wilson, that's one of the things that he spoke on was Blacks need to be at the front of the line of everything. Native Blacks need to be at the front of the line of everything. That's so right. I just wanted to share that, but we could move forward from there because I know that there's a video that Josh really wanted us to play from Claude Anderson that probably goes with DACA.
I pulled it up. It's like 21 minutes long, but I'll see if I can get to it. But right now, I want to get into this next element of the show, which
he said some good stuff in the first 3 minutes of that video. So it might not be.
All right, we'll get to it. Let me. I want to get into this, and I want to weave some things into everything that we're saying about what I have to call the deleterious effects of immigration when it comes to ADOS. I mean, I think that we've shown you all enough of the research that was done by people more qualified than ourselves that showed that immigration hurts our wages, and we're already at the bottom, which is why we're pushing for reparations. But one of the things that I want to do is this. I want to go to the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, the Congressional Black Caucus was founded in, I want to say 70 or 71, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to get into this because I think that it's important in understanding what we're up against as a people that are descended from slavery, who are lacking in politics and have representatives that do not speak for us at all. They don't speak for us at all. So this is from the Congressional Black Caucus's website. And this is an article called Immigration Reform. Take a good look at those people, because all of those people, in my opinion, are gatekeepers. These are some of the people that we have to fight in order to get our way into the big room. I look at this whole political issue, and we are outside of the room. And you have some people that are in the room. They are the controllers. But then you have some people that's right outside the door, and they have access to the room. And these are the people that we see pictured right here. We are, those of us who are descendants of American slavery, are supposed to be the constituency of these people right here that we're looking at. And yet these people, what they call it, for butter biscuits, will throw every last one of us under the bus because they haven't done anything for us. And I'm gonna prove that right now. Okay, on the Congressional Black Caucus's website, immigration reform. So let's read. It says, lifting up the voices of Black immigrants. Now, I want to be clear here, right? Most of the immigration policies are geared towards Mexicans and El Salvadorians, et cetera, crossing the border illegally. It's not centered on quote unquote Black immigrants, but they're slick the way they try to frame it that way. They try to make their issue our issue. Somebody just posted in the chat a term for it. It escapes my mind, but I'm going to go back and look at it. I thought that was an excellent point.
Look at what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Black immigrants only represent 5% of the undocumented population in the United States.
So who are they fighting for? Right. So look, let me read it. It says an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants call America home. 575,000 of them are Black. Black immigrants, much like African Americans, are disproportionately targeted by the criminal justice system. I would like to see some stats on that. Personally, I would like to see some statistics.
Bro, that's exactly what we were talking about. Like, you need to break this thing down by ethnicity.
That's right.
Go ahead.
It says, which often leads to deportation and detention. Consequently, although Black immigrants only represent 5% of the undocumented population in the United States, they represent more than 20% of immigrants facing detention and deportation on criminal grounds. Something else we got to look into.
Hey, man. Hey. On criminal grounds?
On criminal grounds.
Come on, man.
If they committing crimes, and then my brother Ali was breaking down how after the 70s, we start to see this spike, which correlates with the time of this immigrant boom, particularly coming from the Caribbean and people's coming over from the continental Africa. I mean, criminal grounds. I'm just saying. It continues.
Hey, let me tell you something. I know somebody personally who was deported because of a crime that he was committing, doing some street stuff. You know what I mean? He out there doing his thing. They sent them right back they sent them to Jamaica. So I'm saying in this 20% that they're talking about are only the people who got caught.
That's
what
right.
about the ones that didn't get caught?
That's funny. But it begs the question. It says, from the institution of this is good. From the institution of slavery to today's institutions, the criminal justice system, juvenile justice, and welfare systems, African Americans know all too well the pain of the forced separation of our family. So this is them shoehorning our issues, right? From slavery, being separated from, because immigrants coming from Africa, I've not seen any stories about them being separated from their families. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but the camps that were set up along the border show people coming from what's called Hispanic countries. This tragic history unites African Americans with Black, that's interesting, Latino, and other immigrant communities. Okay.
This is absolute nonsense. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
What happens is now, right? We're getting the Latino and the Hispanics and the DACAs and all this stuff. They get double caucus. They already have the Latino caucus.
Now I'm gonna get to that. All right,
go ahead.
That's the next thing up. But like this tragic history unites African Americans with Black, Latino, and other immigrant communities.
This doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make sense. We were largely forced over here, forced to work for free, enslaved. Our children weren't taken because they were over here illegally. Our children were taken because a young male was worth something on a plantation, or a young female was worth something on a plantation. So another slave master, using that term, say, well, I need to buy a new young man or a new young woman because I have needs that young men or young women can only fill. And our families were separated because of that, not because they illegally crossed the border. Now, I'm not saying that the families that crossed the border should have been separated. I think it was cruel what they did to them and how they did it. But to compare what happened with us in slavery to what Trump and them did at the border by these people who are supposed to be our representatives is a slap in our face. And this is why the ADO movement has this term that says the gate is up now. We are here now, and we're going to make sure that this message get out, that y'all are not going to be able to push us to the background anymore. So I want to go here. I want to go to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus because, well, we got to see what they say, because that's their issue, right? The DACA thing, that's their thing. That's what they're on. That's what they're about. That's what they fight for. So here is the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. You see, that was an LGBT in their streaming banner. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to, and people, LGBT, that's your thing, that's your life. Don't misconstrue what we're saying. What we're saying is every issue that some other group has, they use the plight and the laws of our people, as I just explained with the whole separating the children's thing, for their cause, and they're successful with it, and we're not even successful with the things that we fought for. So we're on the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute website. So let's punch in the thing that most concerns our people. That's the legislation or bill or whatever you want to call it that's most needed for us, and that's reparations. And let's see what it says. Oh, wow. Search results for reparations. No post found. So how is it that on the Congressional Black Caucus's website, we find whole entries for DACA, for immigrants, for dreamers, even if they come from the Caribbean or continental Africa? But on the Congressional Hispanic Caucus's website, we find nothing for our reparations. And before I bring my brother on, well, matter of fact, I got a couple things I want to get to, and I'm gonna let y'all go in. Hold on, I got to bring this up because this is really, really important in understanding how these people basically view us. And basically what they're saying is, if I can't have, you can't have either. So let me share this screen real quick. I gotta play this because I think that this is important. I gotta play this. This is AOC, Alex. I used to like her at one point. She still say some things that I like, from a political standpoint. But we gotta play this. I want you all to hear this.
Reparations, but really economically, reparations of the damage done by the New Deal and redlining.
Okay, so right there, she said, we speak about reparations for slavery, but there's no but. If you have a claim, go make your claim. This is the claim for America's descendants of slavery. Ta-Nehisi Coates is sitting there. I can't remember what his pushback was. I just dug this up before the show. But she's talking about the economic damages done after the New Deal. That's not what we're talking about. That's just we're talking about all of it. But what she's trying to do is include her group. So let's continue listening.
Because that is where we saw a compounding of the existing inequity from the legacy of slavery, where we drew red lines around Black communities and we said white communities will get home loans, and they'll get access
Is that as loud as it goes?
to bedrock
Yeah,
of
unfortunately.
wealth in America. And this is the thing that you will be able, this will be your heirloom. And we gave white America an heirloom that appreciated over time, that people still benefit from today. And we did not give that to African American, Mexican communities, Puerto Rican communities.
So right there, she spoke about this heirloom. Basically, what King spoke about, what he said, we're coming to get our check, right? And matter of fact, we could close out right there, but this is where she said that heirloom didn't go to African Americans, Mexicans, and Hispanic communities. So as the Atlanta Black Star headlined this, as you can see over to the right, it says Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says blacks should get reparations and impact of racial injustices in the U.S. and Hispanics should be included too, because that's basically what she said. And where are these people? Where are these people fighting for our reparations? They're non-existent. And if they're going to bring up reparations, what they're slyly trying to do is plug themselves into it. This makes absolutely no sense. And we cannot let these people get away with it. This is why we have this show. Be the power. It is time for us to push to become politicians. It is time for us to start or political advocacy groups, which is what ADOS is in a nutshell. It is political advocacy that got the reparations conversation on the presidential stage, that got the reparations conversation having a highlight shown on it as COVID ravages the nation, particularly African American communities. And one thing doesn't stop, and that's police brutality. But now that everything is quiet and everything is still, the way we get treated by the racists in this society shines even brighter on us. And the calls for reparations is growing louder and louder and louder. So now we should ask those questions again to those same people. That Senator Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden is trying to say he'll look at it, but we got to also look at, the whataboutism. We have to also look at the Native Americans. What about them?
That's a whole separate situation, man. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Like, first of all,
received reparations.
They already received reparations. There's a number of tribes that enslaved our people. If they have a problem with the United States, they can take it up with the United States. I don't understand why. That's almost like you get into a car accident, I get into a car accident, but somehow we got to mash them all together because, like, well, you can't get paid unless I get paid. So we got to, we got to put our claims together. And if we can't do that, then you can't, you can't file your claim, bro. Like, this is really what they're saying to us, This shit is crazy. It's crazy. Pardon me.
Yeah, because, you got instances where, just like in that moment, you got Ta-Nehisi Coates just staring at her like some goofball. I don't know what he was doing. You might as well have been in the crowd. He's just staring at her and like he's in amazement on some goofy stuff. You supposed to be there to ask the hard questions and hold her to the facts. And he should have corrected her because he does know enough to say, listen, what you're saying, because Martin Luther King, knew how to break up the different initiatives. So right. Martin Luther King got started what he called the Poor People's Initiative, right? That's when he was bringing together all poor folks, poor blacks, poor Appalachian whites, poor Hispanics. He did not have that a part of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King had very specific movements strategically set up with its own set of tactics to get it successfully seen through. So, but what they're trying to do, because if we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, the ADOS original culture is freedom fight. They don't know how to freedom fight like this. They don't know how to get justice like we do. So what they do is they watch us and they understand the hatred is really toward us, the deep-rooted hatred toward us. So they say, we will let them work, watch them, and then we will come in and be the light-skinned version of that. We'll come in and be the lighter version, because you know how the old saying goes, if you're light, you're all right. If you're yellow, you're mellow. If you're brown, you might can get down, but if you're black, you better stay back. And that's how I go. So they come in with these different, these watered down, decaffeinated versions of justice and civil rights, and they that's what they try to do. We're too strong for America. We're that coffee, straight up. So she brings her little self in and tries to put some cream in that thing. You know what I'm saying? Lighten it up, man. Make America be like, oh, okay, that's nice. Maybe we can do something for the Hispanics. But then, like I was saying before, right? They get double caucused, right? So we already have a bought out, ineffective Black caucus who really don't care about us no more, right? Because they have an influx of Hispanics even into their own districts. They just trying to get reelected. So now they have rolled back all of their traditional footing to secure their seats in Congress. So now they're fighting for DACA and not reparations, right? So they have teamed up caucuses. So they got the Latina or the Hispanic caucus, and they have the Black caucus working for them too. And we don't even have our own caucus working for us, right? So we are in a horrible situation. We are in a horrible situation. We have to start over and start doing politics all over again from the local and state level, and remove these people out of office and create a Black caucus that actually works for us.
Exactly, yeah. Brother Ali. Did you want to add on to that? And where L, if you want me to pull up this chart, let me know when. We got to get into the last leg of our piece.
Yeah, that's for the Pan African piece.
Okay, that's for the okay.
You could jump into it. You could jump into it.
All right. This is where I want to start with that. Let me see. Okay, I want to start here. I want to start with Edwin Wilmot Blyden. Those of us that study in this particular space, we're familiar with Blyden and the things that he was pushing, right? And he wanted Blackness to be universal based on how the Zionist Jews did what they did. So let me read from this piece real quick. Early African Nationalism, Judaism, and Zionism, Edward Wilmot Blyden, by Benjamin Neuberger. The history of the African race, their enslavement, persecution, proscription, and suffering closely resemble that of the Jews. Blyden, The Jewish Question, 1898. I definitely have a problem with that, but Blyden considered to be the true father of Pan-Africanism. So let me read. It says, this article intends to describe and analyze the attitude of an early Black and African nationalist toward the Jews, the quote-unquote Jewish question, and Zionism. The intriguing relationship between early Black and African nationalism, Judaism, and Zionism from the mid-19th century to the 1950s is not well known. It is particularly interesting in contrast to Israel's precarious diplomatic position in Africa in the 1970s and 80s, considerable African support from the 1975 United Nations resolution, which equated Zionism with racism, and the tension between Jews and Blacks in the United States in the last decades. Blyden was chosen as a first case study because we may rightly call him the founding father of modern Black and African nationalism. Kwame Nkrumah, the first African nationalist to become president of an independent African state, hung a picture of Blyden in his office. In this way, Nkrumah demonstrated who had inspired him and taught him the basic tenets of modern African nationalism. Blyden was the intellectual forefather and teacher of Black and African nationalists as diverse as Du Bois, Garvey, Casely Hayford, and Padmore, Azikiwe and Kenyatta, and finally Césaire, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and Senghor. These are names, some of these names I'm not familiar with. Before analyzing Blyden's attitude towards Jews, Judaism, and Zionism, we will present Blyden's biography and analyze his intellectual contribution to African nationalism. Edward Wilmot Blyden, the man and his ideas. Blyden was born in 1832 in Charlotte Amalie, the capital of St. Thomas, at that time part of the Danish West Indies. So I'm going to stop right there because we see that Blyden wasn't ADOS, right? Or what we would call ADOS, even though at this time we're still enslaved. This when he's born in 1832. So when we start to look at people's positions and understand them, and some of these people meant well. They meant well, but I don't think that many of them understood the dynamic like this brother right here. Right? This is a brother that was born in the islands, Hubert Harrison. He came to the United States of America. He was an intellectual juggernaut. He understood both issues. He understood the class issue and he understood the race issue. And he said that the Negro was the touchstone of the modern day Republican ideal. And anybody knows what a touchstone is. It's the piece of metal or stone that is used to test to see if gold is authentic or not. And this is a way that Blyden used that analogy. And he came and exploited people like W.E.B. Du Bois and many others who he had looked up to as an intellectual. Once he got to the United States, he came to see that they weren't fighting for our people. The NAACP, all the way back then, were fighting against anti-lynching legislation. And brothers like Hubert Harrison, he was putting them on the spot. So we could kind of give Edward Wilmot Blyden a pass here, but I wanted to read that because I think it's important in understanding where the idea of African nationalism, Pan Africanism comes from. Blyden's idea was Zionistic in nature, meaning that Jews all over the world share in a unique diaspora experience, but it was based on their religion and their Jewish identity. The problem with Blyden's want of this form of Zionism for our people is that we didn't share those things. We had Muslims, we had Christians, and what some would consider pagans, those that practice Yoruba religion, Vodun, et cetera, traditions that are practiced on the African coast. So that is what Blyden was trying to create. I don't think was tantamount to what Zionism had created on a global scale. And I wanted to start with that, right? Because I think that it's important that we understand the moment that we're in, because what organizations like NAACP try to do, and I'm going to pull this up. It says NAACP rolls out its, NAACP rolls out preliminary 10-point reparations plan, right? And I want to go there, and I'm not going to read through the preamble and none of that, but it's basically filled with Pan-Africanism, right? Number one, a formal apology and establishment of a Ma'afa African Holocaust Institute. This is a part of their reparations plan. It's not talking about what we call the freedmen, right? Those people that fought in the Union Army. It's not talking about those things, our ADOS-ness. It's talking about a Ma'afa and things that we are, I'm not going to say disconnected from, but it's not conducive to what we do here, specifically politically, right? So we agree with the apology, but look how they try to add this element into it, thus watering it down. What Martin said about black coffee and adding the milk, well, this Ma'afa part to me is watering down or weakening the apology, in my opinion. Okay, this part right here is what I want to touch on. The right of repatriation and creation of an African knowledge program. Anybody that knows what repatriation means knows it means to go back, to expatriate from the country that you're in and to go back to the country of your origin. So let me just read a little bit of this. The descendants of the millions of Africans who were stolen from Africa and transported to the strange lands of the Americas against their will to enrich their captives have a right to return to the motherland to an African nation of their choice. That's funny. So I'm going to stop this. And what I want to do now is I want to pull up my ancestry from 23andMe. I want to show you all how silly NAACP's idea for reparations is, and why we have to push these people out of the way, and we have to step up, and we have to be strong in our push for reparations. Okay, this is my 23andMe ancestry DNA composition, right? So let's go. It's under my author's name, Sheikway L. Y'all want to find some of my books that I've written, it's under that name, right? So it gives the breakdown. Sub-Saharan African, 88.5%. And it breaks down this Sub-Saharan African into West African, Congolese, and Southern East African, and hunter-gatherer and broadly Sub-Saharan African. So my West African breaks down 67.8%. Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean, 27.2%, Nigerian, 23.5%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I want to point out to you is this. Let's click on Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean. All right, now I got to sign in again. Bear with me, people, because this is key in understanding how silly what NAACP is proposing in their 10-point program is. Okay, it says, Sheik, your DNA suggests that 27.2% of your ancestry is Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean. It reads, a continuum of genetic diversity stretches from Senegal to Nigeria, but the people of the coastal countries above the Gulf of Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, if I say that correct, I always feel I'm saying that wrong, and Ghana share a genetic similarity distinct from neighboring regions. The Temne people, who constitute the largest group in Sierra Leone, call this region home, as do the Mende people, who reside across West Africa in neighboring Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. The Akan peoples predominate. So what am I? Am I Temne? Am I Mende? Am I from the Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana region? Am I Akan? Like which country am I going to call home? It says the country of your choice. Do I just go eeny, meeny, miny, mo? I want to be a Ghanaian or live in Ghana or live in Liberia or live in Sierra Leone just because I have a cluster of it. Like, this is silliness. This is absolute silliness. And we gotta understand that these people can no longer be allowed to claim and act like they were in front of this thing when we know that Sister Yvette Carnell and Brother Antonio Moore and the ADOS movement is the very reason why this reparations issue has the traction and the groundswell that it has. Let me bring up one more thing before I bring my brothers in, real quick. This will be real quick. I want to show you all something. This is the 113th Congress, 2013 to 2014. Brought this up for a reason, because NAACP has been around for what, 30 years, I believe. 30 years.
In Cobra. I don't know about NAACP, but in Cobra.
Okay, well, in Cobra, excuse me. Because in Cobra and NAACP are working in unison to be anti-ADOS right now. So, yeah. So I guess one is like the other, because in my opinion, they both represent the same thing. One has like an African bird. Is that in Cobra that has the African bird?
I don't know. I think so.
One of them. Okay, so look at this, right? This is HR 40. This is the bill that studies reparation. It's a toothless tiger. It's a weak bill. And those of us that follow the ADOS movement, we know this by now, right? We read the bill. We seen its weaknesses. Dr. Darity has also pointed out many of its weaknesses and what needs to be added to the bill, what needs to be taken away. Two sponsors on this bill in 2013 and 2014. Two. So you have a group saying that don't listen to these other Johnny come latelys. I believe that was the language that they used or something similar. Don't listen to these Johnny come latelys. But it's these Johnny come latelys that has this reparation argument pushing forward. So let's look at what the last Congress, the 116th Congress of 2019 to 2020 shows. Whoa, 127. 127 sponsors for 2019 and 2020.
So we went from two under the guide of Narcan and Cobra, the two 30-year-old groups, you know, with all them people in there, to which was originally John Conyers. He was the one that introduced the thing in the first place, and him and Sheila Jackson Lee, I guess that was in 2013 to 100. We went from 2 to 127 plus. Don't forget the companion bill coming out of the Senate.
That's right. That was authored or drafted by Cory Booker. So this is the work of America's descendants of slavery that got that from 2 co-sponsors to 127, and we can't let nobody jump in front of that. We have to fight. And those of us that are ADOS, we have to fight together. We have to understand this thing. And when, you know, brother, where L is going to pull up something on Pan Africanism. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pull that up right now. And
but you going to use this right here?
No. Oh, you didn't want to use this?
I do, but I'm not ready for it right now.
All right. You could close it out on your end. I don't know, because if I close it out, I might bump you off the stream as well, because that happened the last time. But family, those of you who are listening and paying attention, understand that we have a unique fight here, and it's gonna take every last one of us to step up. And this is not just a fight that we need to fight alone, although we're gonna fight this fight. We need allies. Our people that's on the islands and our African brothers and sisters, if I can call you that, right? Because they feel that I've seen videos where they feel that we're not the same. We're not.
Oh yeah, man.
Not sisters. I've seen a lot of this stuff coming out since I've joined this ADOS movement, right? We are not against you. We're not. We are just pro us. We're pro us. We're pro our tribe here in the United States of America. You cannot no longer continue to say that we're divisive when you are separated into tribes all over the continent of Africa. You have a lot of fighting going on in your own country. And I meant to bring that up, this article that I seen on one of Yvette's videos dealing with, and brother, where L jump in, I'll pull that up.
All right. So this what I got to say about the Pan-African piece, right? We understand the disconnect that we have as far as, you know, support and whatnot. But I want to talk about Pan-Africanism, why it's not working, why it's not gonna work, and what it's going to take for it to work, right? Pan-Africanism right now is really a cultural representation of a kumbaya that never really happened, right? So we got to understand that in order for the Pan-Africanism that people want us to believe in to work, it has to have some real exchanges. There has to be some political exchanges, some economic exchanges, and it has to be from African governments. we understand that individuals don't change systemic problems, right? So you can't point out a couple individuals who came here and got with some more individuals and they did some group stuff that was cool, and they had some meetings, they made some festivals, and we ate rice and plantain. That's fine. You understand? But we need, in order for a Pan-African reality to be meaningful, it has to have government support. It has to be an exchange of economics, exchange of policies that's rooted in something that will transform lives. It has to be a position by these governments, right? You can't tell me that I'm part this and that and come home and all this type of stuff. And there's no relationship with I am home. I'm home in America. My parents built this place here. If you was really interested in having some type of relationship with me, start with the economic piece. Let's have an economic relationship. Then I can start building trust based on how we do economics with each other. How about you try to take a position to where, we're going to open up and do exclusive business with Black farms in America where we can import fruits and vegetables and things like that. They do it with China and Mexico and other countries all the time. Where's the communication with that? Where's the, okay, Black folks are struggling and they're getting robbed of their land and Black farms are becoming extinct. We're going to try to help create some type of foreign aid to that. Speaking of foreign aid, brother, if you can pull the screen up. Now, this is how America has been more Pan-African than Africa has. Look at what America is doing for Africa, and where is the money? This is our tax dollars, okay? These are our tax dollars. Look at this, right. Ethiopia. This is money that comes from American tax dollars to African countries. Ethiopia, 1.1 billion. Congo, 494 million. Senegal, 179 million. Zimbabwe, 194 million. Benin, 419 million. Sudan, 924 million. Uganda, 741 million. Tanzania, Somalia, Mozambique, Liberia, Chad. Look at Rwanda, Niger. Look at all of this. Mali. Come on, this is where our reparations is going right here. You understand? This is where your reparations is. It's in Uganda. It's in Sudan. It's in Haiti. Look, we done gave $307 million to Haiti. And then they want to come here and tell us we're being divisive. No, we are feeding you literally with our tax dollars, supporting your governments with our millions and millions of our tax American dollars. You understand that? So I don't want to hear nothing about no Pan-Africanism until you talk about reparations and how, and that's all I want to hear you talk about. And then some of this give back. Where is the reciprocal helps and the mutual obligations, right? Where is that return on our investment? This is our tax dollars being invested into Africa. You understand? We're investing by the billions and the millions into these African countries. Where is the exchange? Where is the return on our investment? We y'all come over here and open up businesses and you don't hire Black folks. You come here, you open up businesses and you don't give us no discounts. You come here and you import all type of stuff exclusively to y'all. You understand? And then you tell us we're being divisive after you have gotten this government undergirding from America, from American tax dollars. I don't want to hear nothing about no Pan-Africanism.
That's ADOS tax dollars right there, man.
You understand that? So
and benign, I see benign. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I'm saying it on purpose. Benign gets a lot of they get a lot of money, but benign is where that's where the homies was, man, and they shipped out how many people from over there?
About 3 million. About
you know what I'm saying? They shipped out over about 3 million Africans from benign, and then they getting 400 something million a year. What was it?
No, we could. they getting where you benign? What you calling them? Benign?
Benign, yeah, benign, man.
They getting 419. This is just 2019, brother. All these numbers are from 2000. This is what America gave them last year.
Yeah, and they probably gonna give them that again.
You know what I'm saying? 419 million to Benin. Benign.
Benign, man.
You know what I'm saying? Togo. Like, they're giving money everywhere, and we wonder why we can't get reparations, because our reparations is going to Africa.
Our reparations is going to everybody else except us. This is craziness.
And then you got African Americans talking about, oh no, I don't want any money. I just need land.
Give me land. Yeah,
land.
The craziest position I've ever seen of people that don't got no money in talking about, that's the last thing we need. I think Bob Johnson said it perfectly when he said, if there's a starting point in making me equal in a capitalistic society, it has to be the most important thing in that society, or the most valuable thing in that society, or the thing that's going to give me the most opportunity to access success and opportunity, and to be able to compete in that type of society. And that's the actual capital, right? So everybody's talking about, give me programs and we need education and all this other goofy stuff. No, what we need is the money. You understand? Then when we have the self-determination and the self-confidence, we've had enough of American programs created for them, by them, and delivered to us. We've had enough of that. We need to start investing to our own selves. We need America to do what they've done for everyone else and do it for us, because they owe us more than anyone else, because we've given more to this country than anyone else. You understand? And gotten less from our efforts than any other group that's ever been in this country. We are the Americans. We are the original Americans. We're more American than anyone else. We are equality. We're the only people who live in this country who have actually exercised that quality that America has poetically written about. We talked about how everyone else, even including the founding felons that we built the country with, nothing but criminals. All the immigrants that came over here, all of them were criminals. You understand?
That's right.
We were saying that before Donald Trump was the president. So that ain't Trump stuff. We ain't Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter. We ain't Trump supporters. I was saying that the immigrants was criminals before they came over here. And I'm not concerned about how they feel about it. You understand? Because we talked about the billions of dollars that's going to Africa and Haiti and all over the place, and we're dying over here. So we got to deal with some real politics. Is a selfish game. You have to be selfish about you and yours, because everyone's at the table trying to eat, and they don't care if you get a scrap.
Yeah, let me just say to the sister Marjorie Melvin, she asks a question: is the African money giveaway pursuant to a Republican or Democrat agenda? And I mean, my short answer would be, it is just an American thing. I don't really think it is based on Republicans or Democrats. I do believe that the amount is usually based on who's in the office, right? That's one of the things that Donald Trump was speaking about, giving away all of this money to all of these different countries. To my sister that said, owning land will bring finance. You can't just have land without, like, what Dr. King said this, right? That video is so important when he said that the American government gave the European immigrants land. Then they undergirded them with land grant colleges. Then they mechanized their farms so that they could produce and be on par with American production. So it wasn't that they just got land, they got monies, they got the equipment to create and produce produce. So it's not just owning land like that. I mean, I could own land.
The money don't just start growing out of the ground. Yeah, and dollars and stuff don't just start falling out of the trees once you own the land. You got to understand government has a job, and I don't understand why we as a people always have this idea that if we just had a little bit of land, or if I just had a little bit of this. No, you need everything that you're supposed to get as a citizen. You need full access to land, full access to capital, full access to government. You understand? Because we are Americans. Let's stop saying just give me a little bit and I'll figure the rest out. No, that's over with. Give me all mine. You understand?
Let me read something real quick that Dr. Darity said in the article for the New York Times Magazine that Nicole Hannah-Jones did. And to this very point we're talking about. He says, to summarize, this is Dr. Darity from Duke University. He says, to summarize, none of the actions we are told Black people must take if they want to, quote unquote, lift themselves out of poverty and gain financial stability. Not marrying, not getting educated, not saving more, not owning a home can mitigate 400 years of racialized plundering. Wealth begets wealth, and white Americans have had centuries of government assistance to accumulate wealth, while the government has, for the vast majority of this country, worked against Black Americans doing the same. The cause of the gap, the racial wealth gap, the cause of the gap must be found in the structural characteristics of the American economy, heavily infused at every point with both an inheritance of racism and the ongoing authority of white supremacy. The authors of the Duke study write, there are no actions that Black Americans can take unilaterally that will have much of an effect on reducing the wealth gap. For the gap to be closed, America must undergo a vast social transformation produced by the adoption of bold national policies.
Real quick, I was holding this book up for a reason. It's books like this that give us an understanding of what King was breaking down. Like, these people didn't just get land. They got money from the government. So now 3 and 4 generations later, they are wealthy. Many of them are your politicians, and they tell their story. My great-great-grandparents came here with 2 nickels in their pocket, and they couldn't speak no English. Like, really? Because we was kind of speaking broken English for a long time on this land, but y'all just came over, and now y'all rich, and many of our people are still in what they called ghettos. So, this book right here, When Affirmative Action Was White, it speaks about the welfare that the government gave European immigrants. And it's just so important for us to gain a greater understanding of what's going on, because once we start reading this stuff, we start to put aside. I know it happened with me. I had to transform my mindset the deeper I got, because it was just certain things when I first got into this. I was like, nah, but I like to study. I love to read. I love to cross-reference. I love to do all that stuff. I'm like, that not only does that make sense, that's right. Here's the documentation. Here's the data and the statistics to support it. So, we got to definitely gain a greater understanding of because I see somebody in the chat talk about reparations is only about money. No, that's just not true, brother or sister who made that comment. Reparations means to repair. It is a whole repair. It is a broad package. It is not just money. It is
even if you look at in Cobra's proposals or NARC's proposal, it's comprehensive. It's inclusive of a lot of stuff, man. It's not just money. It's never been that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I understand that sentiment, and it needs to be louder. But we must understand it's not only money, but run that money though. Run it now. Run it up front. Run it up front. We can talk about the other stuff on the back end. We starting with the bread.
Start with the money. But I don't want people to get so caught up in thinking, because you have some questions that arise. I've seen that, because you got some of our people that really don't want us to have nothing, because some of them are already elevated in a financial like one of my brothers who just blocked me recently on Facebook. I hope he's watching so he can know that I'm talking about him. And feel that, so he'll ask a question like, do you think that this devil is going to stop doing this or doing that to us because we get reparations? And I'm just basically paraphrasing and coming up with something, because I've seen that question a lot, and I can't remember if he specifically said that, but it was one of his type of questions based on the type of questions that he usually asks. And like, we can't think along those terms, because what we're doing is saying that, okay, if they give us money, you think they're going to stop knocking us upside the head. No, reparations also means true justice reform, not this watered down stuff that has to be negotiated between Democrats and Republicans as is going on in the house in the House right now. The Democrats just rejected the bill because the senators on the Republican side, not just the senators, the Republicans in general, in both the House and the Senate, are trying to not strip qualified immunity from police officers, because qualified immunity also extends to public officials. And while both parties are corrupt, I don't think anybody more corrupt than the Republicans in this United States government. Period. Hands down.
When you look at,
but them Republicans are the most corrupt in my opinion.
When you look at qualified immunity, that's about money. Because qualified immunity is not criminal. It doesn't have nothing to do with criminal charges. Qualified immunity is the ability to sue somebody. It's a civil thing. It has nothing to do with taking someone to criminal court. Qualified immunity is that you can't sue the individual, but the institution takes all the financial damages. You understand? So they get institutional protection. You understand what qualified immunity? So that's what we don't. We need institutional. We don't have no institutional protection. But these people can turn from law enforcer to lawbreaker right in front of the world and get you can't even sue them. Let alone get them in the criminal court, you can't even sue them.
Right.
You understand? So but when we start with the money, you have to understand, right? When people don't have money, they can't think right. You know, because they're so driven. Money's the only thing that's on their mind. Like I tell somebody right now, only problems I have is only money can fix it. I don't got no problems that money can't fix. I don't know what type of problems other people got, but I don't have no problems money can't fix. And then when I have money, I can think better. You know what I mean? I'm more creative when I got a little bit of paper on.
That's right. That's
so if you had some money, you might. if you had a few 100,000, a million or so, and within your family, you might be able to do some things you never thought of too. How about you get the money first and see? We should be given the opportunity to see what you can do with the money. You don't even know what you can do with it yet because you used to be too busy hustling for 20s and 50s, and you know what I'm saying. You don't know what it's like to have a couple million in your pocket, in your bank account, and then get your.
I know. I wouldn't know what to do. I probably would sleep better.
Yeah,
I'll be getting a good. They say you need 8 hours of sleep. I only get a couple hours of sleep. I probably sleep 8 hours a couple days out the week. So
one more point I wanted to make about that real quick. When people think about the money, I think too often they're thinking about in individual terms. You're not understanding that your entire family is going to get this money. So this is transforming the whole family situation. So it ain't like
your wife.
So your wife, your kids, your brother, your cousin. He ain't gonna have to say, "Let me hold something no more."
I think, aren't they trying to do baby bonds for the children under a certain age? Is that a part of the reparation?
I know that not Darity. I don't know if Darity's proposed that, but I know that I don't know if he's still supposed. I'm listening to the book. I haven't read it yet, and we don't have Josh on. I don't have a problem with baby bonds.
Me neither.
I mean, the only thing is, from what I saw about it, when they did it in some European country, it got taken back by another regime that came in after the one that implemented it. So
I don't know.
Be something vocable.
I don't know about baby bonds. I'm not against it, but I know if you have some money, you can actually get jail bonds, and you can get your butt out of jail with actually making bonds. You understand, like that?
Right.
So understand what I'm saying, right? When we go back to the police part, if you had money, you understand? If you have money, police institutions protect those who pay the most and don't the most to the fraternal order of police. You understand? So now they will see it's always about the money in a capitalistic society. So if you see black folks are the poorest people in the country and they get abused by the police more than anyone else in the country, everything is about money in a capitalist society. So whatever you're talking about, we have to be talking about money first, period. Because the institution of police work for people with money. You understand? If we had institutions and that were valuable in the city and we were wealth holders in the city, you would see a difference in what everybody's posture would be, because everybody start talking different when they start talking about money. Watch the movie Django. They never wanted to do anything. It's a funny thing that they showed you in that movie. Every time they tricked them, it was always about the bread. He didn't want to hear nothing until they started talking about money, and they'll let them walk right in the door.
With the woo said, cash rules everything around me.
Cream with the money, dollar bill, y'all.
Yeah, run the bread, yo.
Mm-hmm.
My man in the chat said, "Nah, yo, no, what he said? No, give me my child money."
I respect that.
Give me my child money.
Give it to me now, because I think the baby bonds thing is something that they can only access once they get
unless they make it irrevocable, something that's irrevocable. But no, I feel you. Put the money in the account. We all deserve it.
Yeah, they not your kids. Give me the money. See, that's the government. Right. You know, keep on trying to treat us like we don't know what to do. Like y'all don't know what to do with the money. We'll make some bonds, and when they get older, we'll give it to them. Who knows? You might not even be around. Give them the money now. They need help now. The help they need ain't 20 years from now. The help they need is now.
And that's another part about the baby bonds. So if you, let's say, they maybe turn 18 before they can access the money. What happens if the kid dies before he's 18? What happens to that money?
What happens to the money?
That's a good point.
None of that stuff makes sense. Give us what you owe me. Don't be talking about creating no savings plan for me. I know how to save my own money. I can stack my own bread.
Word. Yeah. It's any other things in the chat?
Especially when you're giving billions of dollars to people that ain't even citizens. Why are we talking about holding my money back? You didn't pay billions of dollars over in Ethiopia.
That's a fact.
What are we talking about bonds for my babies for? When you giving millions of dollars in Haiti, you giving millions of dollars in Chad.
You know that chart you brought up is so powerful about all of the foreign aid that goes to all those African nations, not just the African ones, but just all over the world. Yeah. And those are people. I think our people really need to understand that those are our tax dollars that we paying, that's going to all of these different countries, and yet you have people who may be immigrants from some of those countries that are here that will speak against reparations for us. That's crazy. That's crazy. And then you get people siding with those folks.
That is crazy.
Don't make no sense. And then the same folks that come from them countries come over here and then tell us we lazy. And we just don't work hard enough.
That's right, Marjorie. Like, they want to police our pockets. It's like Europeans have this very paternalistic relationship to us. They feel like they have some kind of like God-given right to tell us what to do.
Yeah, I seen that out of the bloody shirt before.
Yeah.
We don't want to give them jobs because give them money because they're gonna do nothing but go get drunk.
Drink whiskey and buy whiskey with. If I want to drink whiskey, that's my business.
If I want to buy a Newport truck and drive up to the reporter and say, "I'm rich."
Hey, how much on the Bob Johnson thing, right? How much did he say each person's supposed to get?
So a lot of people bicker about the number, but I don't even want to argue about the number, whether it should be more or not. I just want to entertain that idea for a second and just think about what it can do for you and your family. It's just an idea, you know. Let's not beat him up for having an idea, you know. So 350,000. I don't know how your money situation is right now. I'm not in a position to say I can't take $350,000 right now. I'm not in. I'm just not me. I can't say that. I'm being 100% honest.
Let me tell you, all of the people that are saying that we shouldn't get checks, if somebody offered them $350,000, $400,000, they would snatch it up in a minute, man.
That's a fact.
It just doesn't make any sense.
I feel like we should have a waiver program. I said this a long time ago. I put this in the ADOS group a while back on Facebook. We should somehow create a waiver program for all of the African Americans who don't want any money.
That's right.
Sign the waiver saying that I don't want no $450,000 checks for me, for my wife, for my kids. I don't want none of that. So just take whatever was supposed to go to us, put it back in the pot, and redistribute it to everybody else who does want it. And we'll figure it out because we're going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We don't want no money.
Yeah, you feel me? Yo, and that's a real good question somebody brought up. They was asking, is that 350 going to be taxed? First of all, it should be taxed. Part of reparations is no taxation without reparations. You shouldn't even be taxing us. We should get the next 50 years tax-free, at least the next 50 years. We shouldn't have to really pay taxes ever again in this country, in my opinion, because of all of the labor they stole. But now, if we look at the 350, right? That number is based on the population that they say that money will go to. But we know it has to be held to the ADOS standard. And now, if it's held to the ADOS standard, that we talked about in another show, and I heard someone else say just recently that number really looked something like 30 million, 30 to 32 million. So that means everybody would really end up getting to like 400 to 500,000 dollars.
That's right.
You know, so now we're really talking that just between me and my wife, that we'd be $1 million, sitting at $1 million. Not even talking about the rest of my kids. And I got several children. You know what I mean? And that'll make more children if you start knowing you can get 500.
That's a fact. I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
And that's why we got to stay on it, because our livelihoods, I believe, depend on it. There's an article, and I'm going to pull this up, and I want to share it because I want people to see it, because like we are going backwards. And if you look at what COVID did with unemployment and things of that nature, right now, you got some people. E.S. Glaude, an MSNBC commentator, said that it's possible that we could go back as Black people, quote unquote, to the wealth levels of the 50s and 60s. But look at this article and what it says. Median wealth of Black Americans will fall to zero by 2053, warns new report. That means that the trend that we are on collectively is descending. It's descending. It's not going up. You know, Trump keeps talking about these things that he's doing. Well, these economists are showing a bleak future for our people, that by 2053, the middle, quote unquote, Black family on down will be worth $0. Right now, that number at the median is between 1,700 and 3,500. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the 3,500 is with depreciating assets, your car. Maybe you got a painting in your house or something that's worth something. You take those things away, and that number gets reduced to $1,700. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I've seen both numbers: $1,700 without depreciating assets, and $3,500. I've seen that number as well. Both numbers are extremely low, extremely low.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, this is to that to the person's point that was talking about taxes. This is something that Ice Cube said. Ice Cube, but like I said the other night, Ice Cube been going in on Twitter, man. But this is something that he said, and he got some coverage from Black Enterprise. He said the high cost of racism. Blacks in America should be exempt from paying taxes for 462 years. This will help to start repairing the damage done to us by America. Our bill is paid by now, no more.
That's right. And that's for Black businesses, that's land taxes, property taxes, taxes on loans, taxes on business, any type of tax, we should not have to pay it. That's what we should get. So we understand that we built the country, we came up with the inventions, we fought in every war, we're the most American people. We should have an elite class. We should have an elite position. We're only 13% of America's population, so we're not talking about a whole bunch of people. America has 300 million, but we should be elite. If you look at the history, look at the contributions, look at what was stolen, look at what was denied, look at the domestic terrorism visited on us, the loss of life. You understand the destruction of communities, entire towns, cities, and things. We are supposed to have an elite status in this country by every metric of right, moral, social, everything. Right, we're supposed to be the elite Americans, and it's gonna happen if we have that type of will to make it happen. So understand that we're gonna get it.
Exactly. So, we're coming up on 2 hours and 20 minutes. We flowing. I feel like I could talk for another hour, to be honest with y'all. This is one of them shows I didn't even expect us to kind of go this long, but you know, I think that we made a case. I wanted to get deeper into the Pan-Africanism thing. That was what tonight's show was supposed to be dedicated to. But once I read the thing by the NAACP earlier today, that just pissed me off, man. And we need to be pissed off. These people are in our way. They're in our way. And we have to let it be known right now that more and more of us are waking up. We're waking up. And again, I'm gonna always give a shout out to the ADOS movement. You know, me and my brothers and I, we've been on our little political thing for some years now. But you know, when your eye get open to another area of information and you do the due diligence to see if it's right and exact or not, you'd be a fool to shun it. And some of our people get so caught in personality worship that the only thing they can do is focus on the personality. This one kung fu guy from the Moorish movement, whom I won't name, used to tell his story about the Chinese master and how they were so enamored with the master that they just tried to mimic every single thing he did. So he was given a lesson about the moon and he was pointing, but instead of looking at the moon, they were just all looking everywhere his finger went. And I think that that's a powerful analogy because we have a penchant to make stars out of people, which is one of the reasons why I believe that celebrities are put in the space that they are in, particularly when it comes to ADOS. And if that is an old Chinese analogy, we know that this is a human condition. So it is our job as intellectuals, right? At least I think my brothers are intellectual, right? It is our job as intellectuals to deconstruct these things so that people could stop looking at the finger and pay attention to the lesson. The lesson is what's valuable. The personal stuff and people's personal lives and all of that stuff is irrelevant. If I started smoking crack and I came on here and I shot heroin while I'm doing the show, would it make my message any less true? It would still be the facts if you could go back and back up every single thing that I was saying. You see what I'm saying? So, I just wanted to make that point. My brother Ali Bey has something pulled up from Ice Cube again.
Yeah, and I just, for people who don't understand everything that reparations should entail, like he really kind of touching on it here. This is not all there is to it, but he gets the basic understanding of it. You see, he's talking about reparations, housing funding for HBCUs, black business funds, healthcare, urban education, better prison reform. We need trillions. So people are beginning to pay attention. Even the so-called moguls and the people with millions of dollars understand that, our people are owed this and that it's needed at this point. It's a necessary thing. It's beyond just that the fact that it's a debt and that it's owed. We're beyond that. The numbers that you're talking about by 2053, I think these people, they understand, like, we're in a place, like I said the other night, I think COVID-19, the fact that we had to quarantine is making a lot of our people have to deal with things they normally wouldn't have to had faced, and would have been able to escape through the arts and so forth. And so even our artists who have been forced to stay home are now having to look at everything that's going on with our people. Like, he was talking about the song with Beyonce, where she's talking about she wants reparations for her people. Like, she may not need that money, but she's saying she wants reparations for her people. So I think all of these folks, between the killing and the COVID and how COVID is affecting our families and everything, their families too, I think it's just forced everybody to see this thing for what it really is and see that we're not in the greatest shape here.
Yo, Ali, isn't that something? You got Byron Allen, Bob Johnson, Beyonce, Ice Cube, all these rich black folk talking about reparations, and you got the brokest people out here talking about we don't need no money. What is going on? What is wrong? Does that even make any sense?
It don't make no sense at all.
Doesn't make any sense.
Crazy. All right, we have a question for the panel. It says, question to the panel. If the concessions had to be made that in order for reparations to pass, all African Americans have to be included, do you think that can be agreed upon?
Ooh, let me answer this, right? This is a trick. This is a trick bag, right? Look, all African Americans are ADOS. There ain't, if you're not ADOS, you're not African American. African American was a term created by ADOS for ADOS. Everybody else knew who they were. Everybody else. So when they came up with the term African American in the late 70s, early 80s, it was for the descendants of slavery. So if you're talking about all African Americans, you're talking about all ADOS, and I agree with you 100%. Because you can't come here being from Haiti, because when Haiti won the American Revolution, they turned it to African island. They called it Haiti. And when they come to America, they call it Haitian Americans. You don't get to be Haitian American and African American. When did that happen? I ain't get it. Because once we start calling ourselves African American, we was the first people to do it. It happened in the 80s, right? The world didn't start doing it. They came and did it after we started doing it. So when we're talking about African Americans, we don't even know we're talking about ADOS.
Right. I was going to bring that question up earlier. Like, at what point did all of these people become African Americans? Because I know, like, sometimes, some of them make that argument where, like, oh, we're African, we become African Americans too. How? When?
You a Dominican? You just was Dominican yesterday.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I had a job where I worked with these brothers and sisters from Africa, and none of them told me they was African American. They said I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian. You know what I mean? Not one of them told me they was African American. They don't even know what it is. Because how do you become something in the 80s after you was living in Haiti and all over the place in Jamaica? You Jamaican American, you got a flag, you got your own food, you got your patois, you got your French, you got your voodoo, you got all kind of specific stuff that come from where you come from. Then when you come here, you African American. When did you come? How did you get to be African American? When we created the term here in America, and when you come here from another country, you're country and country. You understand? That African American shows that and identifies the destruction of that lineage. That's why it has a continent in place of country, because there is no country to country connection if you ADOS. You understand? So people are trying to grift. That's called a grift, and kind of cloak themselves in ADOSness so they can get their hands on the bag that ain't theirs. That's called stealing. You understand?
Right. And that's why Cynthia made the point that it was first acknowledged in, like, from a sermon. From what I remember, it was a sermon written by the African American in 1782, by an African American in 1782. I think it was a Yale law professor or something like that, found it doing some research, and he went through a database and he found an old sermon written by someone called an African American, 1782. Yeah, she's right about that.
Yeah, but as a political identifier, right? You don't start to see that being used as a political term, right? It wasn't political, and it was not used largely by Black folks to identify themselves with. We still was calling each other Negro, Black, colored, a very confused identity.
Really not even Negro back then.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we go through all these different changes.
We were just using Negro. Black, like,
right.
Well, you had Dr. Du Bois, the soul of the Black man, and the Black folks, the soul of Black folks is what it's called. So we had all these different ideology shifts, but politicizing it, when we talking about politically calling it African American and making it to be something more politically correct, we see that movement being led in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
Somebody asked, was we from the Moorish Science Temple of America? and yes, with the exception of my brother Ali, we've all been members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That's to the brother. Oh, man. He just asked that question. Ricky Manor. Definitely. So look, I guess we're gonna end it now, unless y'all got something else y'all wanted to add on real quick. We pushing 2 hours.
Unless Cynthia want to jump on.
she said she chilling tonight.
Let's see what jump on.
I hit her up and asked her if she wanted to come on because Josh couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Healing up. I think she had some surgery or something like that.
Yeah.
You know. But sister.
I gotta get up at like 5.
Oh,
I stay up late for this though. You know, this is important.
Definitely,
this is important.
She says she's still healing. Yeah, definitely.
Heal up. You know,
I'm sending my religious healing to you, sister.
That's funny. you know,
our sister atheist, so I got to rib her a little bit. I'm sending some religious healing to you, sister.
So, hey, the funny story before I get off this. I was at the post office. Everybody had on masks and gloves, and I'm like, "Yo, where your mask and gloves at?" And the other dude said, "Oh, this guy's wearing the armor of God."
That's funny.
The armor of God. Huh?
Yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's funny." Yeah, but you know, I gotta go. So. I'm gonna always say, until I'm the real in the real spirit of America, no taxation without reparations, and give me reparations and give me death. You hear me?
Straight up. All right, brother. Peace, brother Ali. You wanted to say something real quick?
Nah, man. I just enjoyed the conversation. Glad to have been able to be on with you and the brother, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments in the chat.
What's that?
No, they just talk about the whole religious thing and all that. Definitely, though, man. Honor and shout out to everybody. Thanks for everybody that sent donations via Cash App. Thanks for everybody that sent donations via the super chat. We're gonna keep trying to grow the show. YouTube is acting real funny right now, and it's kind of hard to grow the numbers. So if you can, it's not that you can't. Can you click like on the video, share it out to your friends and family if you feel, and the people on your timeline on social media, if you feel that this information is worth value. I give shout outs to ADOS, the movement. I give shout out to Yvette Carnell and brother Antonio Moore for giving us some extra footing to go harder and push for reparations from I don't want to say our perspective. Our perspective is just historical. We may have a different historical approach based on our different ideological schools. The reparations push is one. And I brought that up the other night when Sister Cynthia came on. If it was your first time watching the show, you would have thought she was a part of the panel because of the fact that there's a code. And if everybody's on code, and one of us may get something wrong here or there, we may slip up a word here or there. Sometimes I'll be listening back and I'll be like, what in the world did I just say? Like, I'm bugging. But it happens when you're on live. So, but overall, I think that all of us that, somebody in the chat said Abba turned his back on the prophet because I don't rock with these corny Moors anymore. I turn my back on a man that had a political movement, that spoke about reparations, that was cleaning up people, that was very political, had the first voting block outside of quote unquote Christian blacks. But I'm the one that turned my back on him, man. I guess you're right, brother. He said I lost confidence in him. I got to read these. I lost confidence in the prophet because I have no confidence in none of those goofballs that brothers like that. I'm not saying all of them, but it is what it is. I'm going to always ride with Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I'm a Moorish American to the core of my being. I just don't rock with goofballs just like you, James Miller, with that fake name, because you wouldn't be James Miller on YouTube. You'll be something L or something Bay. So it is what it is, man. But yeah, go ahead, brother.
Well, here's the thing, right? That's an organization that is alleged to have been founded in 1913. Allegedly. It is 2020. So the organization is over 100 years old. They haven't done anything. After Noble Drew Ali passed away, they haven't done anything.
We have
But no. Don't blame, don't give, listen. Frederick Turner L is his own man. He did what he did.
All right, he
did what he did. I respect that. Even the other brother, Jerry Lewis Bay, did what he did. But at the end of the day, the Moorish Science Temple of America as an organization hasn't done anything since Prophet Noble Drew Ali passed away. And all throughout the civil rights movement, those guys were missing in action. The only reason why anybody's even talking about the Moorish Science Temple of America at this point in time is because of that sovereign citizen old dude, Taj Tariq Bey.
Facts.
That's the only reason. If Taj Tariq Bey and nature didn't start all of that driver's license stuff, nobody would even be thinking about the Moorish Science Temple or the Moorish movement or any of that stuff, because their claim to fame in this day and time is driver's license fraud. And the United States is a corporation. And we got to, you know what I'm saying? We're not Negro, blacks, and colored, and we got to correct our status correction packages, 2,500, 5,000. You know, that's the Moorish movement's claim to fame in this day and time. It doesn't have anything to do with upward mobility, progress, social, economic, political change for the group that has been abused and mistreated by, you know, European Americans in this country for centuries. It has nothing to do with that. These guys are jokers. They're jokers, and they're deluded, and they've deluded themselves into thinking that that organization is somehow some magical answer to everything that goes on with our people. So they're really a separatist group that is aside and apart from the rest of our family. Right? We stand with our family. I don't care what they say. They can talk about the prophet all day they want, or you turned your back on the prophet. Later for that, I stand with my family. My family's here right now today. That's what I'm rocking with. I'm rocking with my family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers, sisters, all of that. My grandparents. That's what I'm rocking with.
He's asking me to repeat what the prophet did, right? He says, then repeat what the prophet did then. When I was trying to do it, I had goofballs like that hating on me at every turn. When I established the Moorish American Party so we could start the politics and doing what Noble Drew Ali was actually doing, I had goofballs like that hating on me at every turn, making sure that nothing got off the ground. When I started putting scholarship out, they was trying to run behind my back and trying to have the scholars disregard me. The scholars still published me in their books. So I've done a lot for this movement. My books, if you was to survey the prisons in the United States of America, you're going to see Sheikh Way L's books all throughout the prisons in the United States of America. I got the letters to this day, the testimonies of people saying they can't get literature. Testimonies, what you've done in expounding on what Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought was amazing. It was eye-opening and yada, yada. I did my work. And then y'all hated on me like ad nauseum, as if I came in and I don't even know this man.
Bro, listen, you did a lot for those guys in terms of knowledge, in terms of bringing them out of that cartoon stuff into the reality of trying to give them some kind of foundation and footing and some historical background, because all of that stuff was really just is really like comic book talk until you started putting pieces together to show the historicity of what Drew Ali was actually saying. At the end of the day, they had their shot. You know what I mean? That organization is dead in the water as far as I'm concerned. They can, those guys are like holdouts. They love the prophet and blah, 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 all that stuff. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But Drew Ali's not here. He's been gone since 1929. He's not here. We're here now, right? And one of the things that he said, if you really adherents of his teachings, he said, I can't save you.
No one can save you.
No one can save you, but
just get you to thinking
you would save yourself.
That's what he said. So these guys they want to worship the man.
They want to worship him.
The lessons says, and they would worship Jesus as a God. But Jesus says, no, you will only worship Allah. I am your brother, man, just come to show you the way. So like a lot of this stuff is just is crazy. You know, the guy, he's still in there asking questions, talk about was Oscar the Priest a joke? Was the alderman
Oscar the Priest was but let me say this, Oscar the Priest was a Negro congressman. see, what they don't realize is we be holding back. We could actually rip that whole thing to shreds if we wanted to.
Facts.
I had made a post a while back saying, if y'all think Ali Muhammad did you bad, you really don't want me to get on your organization, because if I start on that thing, it's gonna be worse than anything y'all had done to you already.
You said Sarah,
man. So at the end of the day, understand the Moorish Science Temple of America has not done a thing to change the social, economic, political conditions of our tribe in this country. The descendants of the 4 million freedmen and women emancipated in 1865 haven't done nothing. Right, so Drew Ali organized a voting block of a few thousand people in Chicago. But who were they voting for? They were voting for Negro representatives, because Negroes were already doing stuff before Drew Ali even got there. Understand that. So stop trying to make this thing into something that it's not. It's not what you're trying to make it out to be. It's just not. He was a man. You're a man. We're all men and women. We all have the ability to think and do things for ourselves. We're here right now today. ADOS is doing the work that Noble Drew Ali would have liked to have done back then. This is what ADOS is doing right now. So it is what it is. You may not like it, but that's the fact.
He says, so take his lessons and save yourselves then, instead of trying to blast the prophet's works. I guess the prophet was Noble Drew Ali did his thing. Noble, for those that don't know, I'm not going to belabor this. Noble Drew Ali comes to Chicago in 1925. In 3 years' time, he organizes Chicago in a way that most had never seen before, right? And it was centered around, he taught civics for 3 years. He taught civics from 1925 to 1928. This is how he knew all of the political players in Chicago. And when it was time to vote, it was the vote of the Moorish Americans that helped by his organization. And we could speculate on that, right? But from what we know, that voting block helped push those candidates. Oscar the Priest, who was running for that congressional seat of that district in Illinois, and Louis B. Anderson, who was the alderman, who was running for alderman, right? So, and he did works. It wasn't just people playing dress up in fezzes and saying praise the law and Islam all day. The man put in work in 3 years. He put his work in. And like we said earlier, the brother Noble Drew Ali said, I can't save you. Nobody can save you. But if you would just get to thinking, you will save yourselves. These people stopped thinking. They stopped thinking. So now the fact that we've fallen back because the movement is not producing any works, and because we're about the action, we're about trying to put in work. So why would you remain a part of something where every time you try to take a step, somebody's trying to shackle your ankles, right? They're trying to put shackles on your ankles. They don't want you to move. They don't want you to shine because you can outthink them. You've outsmarted them. Not that you were trying to do that, but that's the way they perceived it. Jealousy, an intellectual jealousy. This brother just comes out of nowhere. And he's breaking down. He has treatises on the ancient Moabites. We were still in the Bible with it. This brother has put together historical treatises that's being cited in textbooks that are in universities right now. Sheikh Wayel. And this made them jealous. It enraged them. So for those of you that's trying to talk this other stuff, man, you people are bugged out. And I'm betting this person, because he said he was disguised, he has no works. Nothing.
Well, see, that's what I would ask him. You know, there's a couple of things. He's talking about Khalid Bey. Khalid Bey is somebody that I'm actually doing some stuff with right now. He doesn't even know this, right? On the music side, because Khalid has a radio station, and he and I are doing some music stuff together with his radio station, right? And I know Web Bey with his school. See, like, he doesn't know that we were members of Ali's Men, right? I was a member of Ali's Men. I know what Brother Web Bey has with his charter school. I know what Khalid Bey is doing as a councilman. I know that Khalid Bey, which you probably don't know, that Khalid Bey has a radio station, and Khalid Bey and I are working together on some stuff. But at the end of the day, that's neither here nor there. Those things that those two individuals that you're talking about are doing are great things. But that doesn't have anything to do with the Moorish movement. Khalid Bey is not a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
At all.
He's not a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Web Bey is, but Khalid Bey is not. See, you think we don't know this stuff, but you're wrong. We know exactly who you're talking about and what their positions are. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying, it's not an attack on Noble Drew Ali. I'm talking about the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I specifically said when he passed away, y'all, that organization went missing in action. It's basically a defunct organization. There's nothing to it. My question to you, James Miller, would be, where was the Moorish Science Temple of America throughout the civil rights movement when our people were getting dogs sicked on them and water hoses thrown at their kids and getting hit upside their head with nightsticks and billy clubs and thrown in paddy wagons and thrown in jail? Where was the Moorish Science Temple during that period? Break it down. Show me what the Moorish Science Temple of America was doing while our people was going through all that stuff. Because, see, I can show you what Martin Luther King did. I can show you what the Southern Christian Leadership Conference did. We can go into the Operation Breadbasket up in Chicago, what they did up there, where the Moorish Science Temple is headquartered at. He had Operation Breadbasket. Where was the Moorish Science Temple while Dr. King was in Chicago with Operation Breadbasket? I just want to know. Yeah, it went to sleep. And it went to sleep after Noble Drew Ali died. So, yeah, we can talk about Frederick Turner L, but Frederick Turner L did his thing. Jerry Lewis Bey did his thing. Those are two guys that did their thing.
And that's it. That's it. So he said he ain't trying to argue that. He basically agrees with that. He's talking about Operation Proclamation.
What is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
I could really get into that whole thing. I'm just not, but it was just a piece of something that was drawn up on a document. That's all it was. There was nothing that ever went into effect. Like, we have to be real. The Moorish movement could have been what I think, this may be my bias here, could have been what you all wanted it to be, but because it was such a jealousy centered around myself, around my brother Grimmy Yarnell, the actual intellectuals that, you know, my brother Ali Bey never even wanted to join because of some of the stuff that he experienced. You have people arguing with him about using pseudo history while this brother is posting up the actual history, stuff out of the congressional records, etc., etc. Honors brother Arthur Ward for the donation. Definitely, you could definitely come on, brother. ADOS Chicago is in the building. We would love to have you on. I don't even know what we're gonna do for the next show. One of these shows, and I keep saying it, I'm gonna touch on the Moorish movement. I think is vital because people need to understand the Islamic element in North America, because there were a lot of Islamic people captured and enslaved and brought over here to the United States of America, and our church backgrounds, it in some ways precludes that history, and I think that has to be explicated. That needs to be talked about and broken down. So one of these days, I don't know, I'm gonna do something on the Moors.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. Let me see. Somebody said I'm not even a Christian, and I know what Ali is saying is pure facts. They use Operation Proclamation. That's what Khalid Bey used to galvanize and repeat what the all right, man. All right, bro. Let's get up off of here. Honest to the family.
Let me say this, man. Khalid Bey is my man. I ain't got no problems with Khalid Bey. None.
Definitely. So, family, y'all know how we do it. Tuesdays, Thursdays, sometimes Sundays. I don't know what the topic is going to be for Tuesday, but it'll be something. And I don't know. Maybe I'll get into the show on Islamic ADOS. Maybe that's what I'll call it. I think that might be a better title to deal with, and I can weave in the Islamic element of this of ADOSness, because I think that is needed, because that was the disconnect in the North and the South, right? With what King was doing with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Nation of Islam, who also influenced some of the Christian pastors and preachers in the North. You know, you would hear Malcolm bigging these guys up during his speeches when he was going at Martin Luther King Jr. So I don't know. I might do that Tuesday. I don't know. I would have to twist my own arm to want to get into that. Peace, Pretty Nikki 73. James Miller said, ask him on the platform then. I mean, I would say for what? I don't know, but yeah, maybe our Tuesday show we could go in on Narc and in Cobra and see what their grift game is really about, and we could bring in the brother Arthur, man, and probably continue this. I don't know yet, but we're gonna get up off of here. I'm gonna leave y'all with my motto, of course. The motto of the platform is don't just fight the power, become the power, and then you'll have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.
Peace.